Welcome. Today is Tuesday, July 29th, 2022. This is a work session for the Pickens County Board of County Commissioners, and I apologize if I'm kind of losing my voice today. Kelly McNicholas and I were here last night till about 2:30 in the morning finishing up ballots, and it's a lot of interaction, reading names and numbers and all that stuff. So for me, of all people who never loses her voice, is losing her voice. My family would be very excited about that. So we are going to start our day. Is Ellen with us? We're going to start our day with adopted 2022 Brush Creek Master Plan. Ellen Cesano, our long-range planner, is going to, and Cindy Hubin from Community Development are going to bring forward to us the plan highlights, since the Board of Commissioners does not adopt these master plans. They're adopted by planning and zoning, but we like to be in the mix, so we know what the highlights are. So Ellen, please, and thank you guys for your efforts to get this plan done. I'm sure the residents of the Brush Creek area appreciate it.
Thank you, Patty. Yeah.
We can barely hear Ellen.
I can't hear it at all.
Can you not hear me? Patty.
Oh, there she is. Hi, Ellen.
Yeah. Okay, good. So you can hear me, yes?
Yes. We have a hum from something, though. Wait, hold on.
Okay.
I think it's a wire issue. I don't think we're going to be able to.
So we have a wire issue hum, so we'll ignore it, Ellen, and move forward. We can hear you, though, perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, good. So the Planning and Zoning Commission does deserve a lot of credit. They spent a lot of time on this master plan update and really ran a very comprehensive public outreach process. So yes, the Planning and Zoning Commission adopted the Brush Creek Master Plan May 3rd of this year, and really, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay, and get some slides up to help here. All right, so can you all see the slides?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
So what I wanted to do today, as you alluded to, was just really bring you all up to speed, to let you know, as a result of the adoption of this plan, what recommendations in the plan may help to inform the board about some of the land use policy issues that are going to be coming up in the next year. And among those policies that we know we'll be discussing are growth, housing, and climate. And I'm going to try to make this presentation brief and not cover all the topics in the master plan, but try to focus in on some of these topics in particular. So not looking for any action from the board today. This is really just for informational purposes. I think everybody is familiar with the Brush Creek planning area. Just for those who may be in the audience who are not, I don't know how big this is showing up on your screen, but the planning area is really surrounded on two sides by the town of Snowmass Village here on the left side of your screen, and then the Highway 82 runs along the eastern periphery of the boundary, with the exception that there are a few key parcels across Highway 82 on the east side of Highway 82 that are also included in the planning area boundary. And the Brush Creek Park and Ride is one of those properties on that side of the highway. It extends out to the Pickens County landfill. And then this pink line at the bottom right-hand part of the screen, that's the Aspen urban growth boundary area. And the intersection of Brush Creek and Highway 82 is roughly right here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but so Brush Creek Road obviously runs through the middle of the planning area. We've got Brush Creek Village right up where my cursor is as a as a part of the planning area as well. So I'm going to jump into affordable housing and how it is addressed in the plan. This is clearly something that's been front and center in terms of discussion in the recent past and really for the past 2 decades at least. And the question has been about where it's appropriate to locate affordable housing. That's at least one of the questions as it relates to employment centers and the preservation of rural character. The plan enforces the current county policy, which discourages the development of permanent or temporary affordable housing outside of established urban growth boundaries. So,
a little more volume for Ellen.
Sorry, can you?
Ellen, you can go on. Francis just asking you to turn the volume up a bit. You're good.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah,
So-
that's much better.
Okay, so the map on the screen here does show where there are caretaker dwelling units within the planning area, and residents felt as though that sort of density as it relates to affordable housing is appropriate in the rural portions of the county, but beyond that density, not so much. So as you can see, there are some caretaker dwelling units already in existence there. And I'm going to keep going, but do interrupt me if you want to jump in and have questions.
Okay, I'll keep monitoring it on this end, Ellen. If people have questions, just let me know.
I have a question.
Okay.
Wait, Francie has a question.
So, are
Okay.
you talking about caretaker dwelling units as potential affordable housing sites? Is that why you're talking about them?
No, really, it was about when the discussions came up around housing, affordable housing. The real concern as it relates to rural character was locating, I think, dense, intense housing developments. And the caretaker dwelling units are typically single-family dwelling units that are scattered throughout a community, a neighborhood. And so the feeling was that in that iteration, the housing is appropriate in a rural area where it's scattered and mixed in as single-family residences. But where it's more dense and intense, multifamily, outside of the urban growth boundary area, that's really not appropriate. Does that answer your question, Francie?
So is that yes, you're considering CDUs as affordable housing units?
If that was your question, I'm sorry.
Cindy's
I
nodding,
missed
so Cindy's nodding, so that's fine if you want to go on.
that. Yes.
Thank you.
So then, again, the preservation of rural character, as it has been throughout all of the rural master plans, is really a cornerstone. And so another recommendation that was made to preserve rural character and prevent urban sprawl was that the extension of water and sewage utilities be precluded down as it relates to going all the way down to the Highway 82 Brush Creek Road intersection. Because the feeling is that when you extend these utilities, you allow for more dense, more urban level development. And furthermore, the plan recommends that the Aspen urban growth boundary not be extended beyond its current down valley terminus. And I know that this has also been discussed as part of the discussion of affordable housing and where it should or should not be located. So utility extension was clearly addressed here, and the recommendation was that it not be extended.
Yeah, Kelly has a question.
Hi, Ellen.
Yeah.
Sorry I missed the start of your presentation, though I'm caught up. I guess I'm wondering, I don't know. Brush Creek as an area is far less rural than, say the Frying Pan. So how are we contemplating like these transitional areas? Brush Creek has a major county road and a highway running through it, and pretty suburban, like, I'd say development in terms of how the housing is spaced.
And your question is, how are we
Like,
handling?
yeah, like, why are we considering this a rural area? Is that to me is not the best term, or maybe not the same quality of rural when we think of other parts of Pickens County?
Well, I think we have urban area, we have the West of Maroon Creek plan, which is considered to be an urban area plan. And then anything outside of the urban growth boundary area is considered technically in the land use code to be a rural area plan. And so we don't really define any transition areas right now outside of the urban growth boundary areas. And I think that the residents in this area do consider themselves to be rural. They do talk about preserving rural characters. So it's a good point, and it may be something that we want to consider in the future. You know, do we have transition areas or not? There's another transition area that we have defined just outside of the basalt urban growth boundary area. But no, we've never talked about Brush Creek as a transition area, and it's maybe something we want to pursue.
What's the category in the area outside of Basalt called?
It's not called anything. It's called rural right now. But as we look at, we're looking at developing a plan, we're calling the Pick and Basalt Junction area plan. We haven't developed it yet, but that may be an area that we consider to be transitional primarily because we will be looking right at the highway corridor. As you know, once you get off the highway corridor here, it does feel rural in terms of lot size outside of the Brush Creek Village subdivision. The lot sizes are 30 acres plus, most of them. And so, right, we'd have to really think about a highway corridor area may very well be a transition area. I'm not sure that as you go up these valleys, they do have similar characteristics.
Okay, I think Cindy wanted to chime in, Ellen.
Yeah, Al, if you don't mind, I'd just like to say that I think there's a real distinction between the basalt area, the PBJ, the basalt junction area, because basalt doesn't really have the same kind of urban growth boundary that Aspen has. I think if we were able to work with basalt and draw an urban growth boundary, much of that area within that transition or that PBJ area, we might include within an urban growth boundary.
They have a 3-mile.
They have the 3-mile plan. And so,
Go ahead.
and so I would just say that I think that area is distinctly different than how we've always looked at the edge of the Aspen area urban growth boundary. And as Ellen said, we've always set the code up, the land use code, up to be urban standards and more rural standards. And we don't have transition zones. It's not been our history to do that. And the master plans surrounding, I was thinking about this the other night, they have always considered themselves rural in nature with those communities.
Go ahead.
I wonder if we could develop just a density formula so that we could have a suburban area, because I agree with Kelly that particularly in the, what do you call that? The area, Ellen, you called it the outside of the,
Urban growth boundary?
no, where everybody lives up there on the Brush Creek.
Subdivision?
The subdivision, yeah. So, I mean, I think an area that has a subdivision in it could be considered suburban, especially when it's as close to urban as
Both-
Brush
both
Creek
sides.
is. You know, it's not like the Frying Pan, it's not like the Crystal, where you can get pretty far away from an urban area. So maybe that's something to think about as a suburban category based on density and proximity to an urban area, or, because I agree, rural seems like a misnomer for this area.
And just real quick, Cindy, one of the things to me that differentiated is the services. And if we're saying no extension, but they did extend their water, so when you live in a rural area, your services are rural. And so that to me is another classifying factor. If you want water and you want septic and you want sewer, not septic, but then you're kind of changing your parameters of being rural or non-rural. But that's something else that could come into play.
And I'd also just like to say that there's some history on this with the original Aspen Area Community Plan. There was all this distinction, you know, what is that area? What is that intersection? And back in '93, we considered these nodes that were considered transitional nodes, if you would, with the Brush Creek Intercept lot as one of those. But then later in planning efforts down the road, and I think it was 2002, maybe, Ellen, the next iteration of the Aspen Area Community Plan took those extended urban areas out. They even went all the way up into McLean Flats and considered it more of the, you know, extended suburban type nature. And those were taken out in 2002, I believe, Ellen, but I can't remember if it was 2002 or 2012, but I think it was 2002. And since then, they've remained outside of the urban growth boundary within a rural category. It was heavily discussed back in the 90s, but then rejected again in the 2000s.
Okay. We don't generally do public comment, so we need to get through this. We only have a half an hour, so.
I'm the president of the Metro District, so I was just gonna clarify.
Yeah, so let me just see how our time frame is, and I'll give you some time to speak. Thank you. Okay, Ellen?
Thanks. So, yeah, interesting. That is, yeah, a good conversation, more to come on that, it sounds like. So my presentation is pretty quick, so I'll keep going here if that's okay. Patty, yes?
Yes, please,
Right.
because we are limited on time. We only give you a half an hour, so let's see if we can
Right.
move along. We still have lots of discussions on growth today.
Yeah, so this slide also speaks to that rural character piece and what's considered to be rural and what's considered to be transition. In this case, we're looking at zoning, and there's a recommendation that zoning in the area be modified actually to acknowledge the current land use plan, the current land use pattern in the area. And as it lies today, the Brush Creek Village area is zoned AR10, but as you said, it's more suburban in terms of its lot size. Most of the lots in that subdivision are 1 to 2 acres in size, and so the recommendation is that rather than a 10-acre zone district there, we look at a zone district that suits the current lot size more appropriately. So something different that doesn't exist today in terms of the zone district. Outside of that area, most of the lots here are in the 30-acre parcel size. And so the recommendation is that rather than a 10-acre zone district for most of the remaining area, which is, as I said, almost all over 30 acres in size, as far as parcel size goes, that the zoning be changed to reflect a 30-acre lot size. So an RS30 zone district would be appropriate in most of the planning area, with the exception of Brush Creek Village.
What's RSG?
RSG is resource government. Oh, sorry. So Cozy Point Ranch is located where my cursor is. And so, as you know, that's owned by the city of Aspen. And the the northern portion of that lot, which is a little bit off the screen here, is all in agricultural use, primarily open and ag uses. And so the recommendation is that there be a resource government zoning applied for that northern portion of the Cozy Point Ranch to reflect the use, again, to look at the current land use pattern.
So Ellen, that raises the question to me is, there's a lot of issues that I've been pointing out in your memo, rezoning, code changes, etc. So I'm not expecting us to make that decision today. So will there be a time when you'll come back to us outlining the recommendations of rezoning and code changes, and see where the board lands on those, and then we can pursue them further if we want to? Okay, I just want to make sure we have another process, because that's really up to the BOCC. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. The changes recommended in the plan are recommendations only.
Okay.
And if there's a land use code or a zoning change, the results from the recommendations, those have to go through the public land use review process for either a code amendment or a rezoning, which includes a planning and zoning commission review and recommendation, and
Right.
ultimately a board decision.
Yeah, right. I understand the process. I just want to make sure that at some point, these items of rezoning or code changes come back to the board, just this, without all this other master planning stuff, so we can look at those individual issues and see how we want to address them. Steve, and then again, we need to, Steve, go ahead.
In our packet on page 12, there's a map, and it shows the RSG zoning on the southern half and the RS30 on the northern half. And maybe you just have the words reversed, or maybe the map is reversed.
Well, I
I'm not
think the
sure.
green shading is the RSG. See what I mean?
Yeah,
Up
but
at
it's
Cozy Point.
everything south of the Brush Creek Road is the RSG.
That's
Everything
Picken
no-
County on open space.
Everything north of the part Picken County owns. So either your words on that are on the screen right now are reversed. The north and south should be reversed, perhaps. The north half would be the Down Valley portion of Cozy Point Ranch. The map shows it RS30 on the proposal. And I just want to clarify which is.
I thought the
Cozy-
green shading meant RSG.
Let me make sure we're in the same place here, Steve. So Brush Creek Road is running through the center where my cursor is, right? Off of Highway 82. And Cozy Point Ranch is to the north of Brush Creek Road. And I don't know if you can see this dividing line here. That's where Juniper Hill Road comes in. You see that?
Yes.
Right, so to the south of Juniper Hill Road is what's considered to be the south half of Cozy Point Ranch. And that half is recommended for RS30 zoning. because-
Okay, I got it now, Ellen. I see what, there are actually 3 segments. 2 of them are north of the Brush Creek Road. And the wording you have has to do with that part. The Picken County part on the south side of Brush Creek Road is also RSG.
Okay, and that's because that's because it is a conservation zone. It's a government, that's referring to the government, the county ownership of that property and use as a resource zoned, an eased area. So I'm sorry, there's some confusion here. I thought you were talking about the Cozy Point Ranch specifically.
Okay, Greg has a question, and we have,
I just
RS
want to understand the
stand for?
process of how this will come
RS,
back
what does
to
that
us.
stand for?
Clearly, there's a lot. So I just, what
the
does that layout for
staff,
public
staff will
process?
bring back to us a list of recommendations of rezoning and code changes at some time, and then the board can look at the list of what's been recommended and make a decision what we want to move forward on as far as starting the process for rezoning a code
And that will
amendment.
include public hearings.
Well, you have to go through the whole process.
Patty,
We just
really
can't-
I'm just
what-
confirming
Yeah,
that, so
definitely.
Jerry and others listening will
No,
understand that this is the end of
really,
it.
the process for that really is that the master plan's adopted, and now we as staff will bring forward those recommendations. Those recommendations will go to the P and Z, And the P&Z will then make recommendations to the board, and the board will then decide whether or not it's appropriate to make those changes in public hearings. And also, P&Z will have public hearings,
Go
so
through the whole public
lots of
process.
public hearings.
Got it.
And again, this is an advisory, these master plans are advisory only. They are not regulatory. No changes result from the plan itself until further action as required by the land use code is taken. So, yeah, not to worry, these are just recommendations. And I'll keep going if,
Yeah, go ahead, Ella, let's move forward, please.
okay, so this is another elephant in the room, always. So this plan, as several of the other rural master plans have done, is recommending that house size be limited to 5,750 square feet, and that the use of transferable development rights to increase house size be prohibited here. The current average size in the Brush Creek planning area is about 3,500 square feet. Interestingly, a lot of the conversation here was around water capacity issues, and as one of the bases for limiting house size. And that obviously is going to be a lengthy conversation moving forward, but I just wanted to highlight it as a recommendation.
Okay,
Again, it's a recommendation only. So then are there questions, Patty? I can't.
no, we just need to keep this moving because we're already at almost our time and we have a full agenda ahead of us, so, yeah, Ellen, if you can just keep moving, and if I see hands, I'll see what we need to do next. Thank you.
So then on the non-residential side of land use and zoning, there was a lot of conversation around, again, Cozy Point Ranch here in this area, and the Creek Park and Ride here. And then there was some conversation about the parcel just north of the Park and Ride, which has been looked at for years for commercial and other uses outside of the residential realm. And so the recommendation in the plan is that zoning be modified as necessary to preclude all commercial, governmental, and institutional uses that would change the rural residential character of the area. And specifically at the Brush Creek Park and Ride, that area should continue to be maintained as a transit hub, but that the commercial uses there should be very limited and really focused on supporting commuter uses there. On the scenic quality side of things, no surprise, the solar farm near Woody Creek was, and across from Brush Creek was raised as an issue for conversation. And basically the upshot was that the plan recommends that while everybody acknowledged the desire to continue to pursue renewable energy sources and facilities, that there also be perhaps some changes in the land use code to balance the desire of the community to develop those energy sources, renewable energy sources, with consideration of the impacts in neighborhoods. And then on the climate side of things, the plan basically supports the implementation of the Pickens County Climate Emergency Resolution. Fully supports it. And then wildfire is one of the only things I'm bringing forward from the resiliency discussion in the plan, only because it is such an imminent danger. And basically, the plan recommends that at a community scale, there be a lot of proactive direction, and basically that defensible space be managed on an individual and at a neighborhood caucus-wide scale, and that neighborhood evacuation plans be developed. And then finally, I just wanted to bring it to your attention that, as you know, you have an intergovernmental agreement with the Brush Creek Metro District. It was established in 1999, It's due to expire in 2024. So that is it's right around the corner. And just to bring it to your attention that the Brush Creek Metro District would very much like to renew that IGA, but in 2024, you will have the opportunity to review the IGA and decide whether to extend it or to let it expire. So that's just coming down the pike. And that's really all I have.
Okay. Would you like to speak? Come up to the record and come up to the mic.
I'll make this really brief. I'm
Great.
Jerry Scheinbaum, the president.
To a
You need to
microphone.
sit down and have a mic there. Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks for
I
coming
wanted
in.
to be brief.
No, we appreciate your being here.
Okay, I'm Jerry Scheinbaum. I'm president of the Brush Creek Metro District. Kelly, I just wanted to address this to you. Our water comes from Snowmass Water and Sand. We have a water service agreement with them that spells out very clearly that we could provide water to we have about 127 lots plus 7 more lots up in Pioneer Springs. And our water system is not expandable and it is not available for any use outside the boundaries of the Brush Creek Metro District. We are under pressure periodically to give a tap to somebody and give a tap to somebody else.
I
In
think
our
we
hands,
asked you for a tap, so I know.
Yeah, that's why he's bringing it to our attention.
Yeah.
our answer is no. And, it's based on the senior water rights we had to provide to Snowmass. It's limited by our pipe size. There's a lot of limitations. So any expansion of the subdivision, lot splits or this or that, is not
I
gonna
wasn't
happen.
suggesting that. I just, I guess wanted to contemplate what's there now
Well,
and how it
3 acre lots
compares
are
to
very,
what we
very
envision
rural
of
in nature. I mean, Greg could go outside in his patio and he sees like wildlife.
We're on 4 acres, actually.
4
so-
acres, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm on 3. But our neighbors, I can't yell to my neighbor. So, anyway, that's all I have to
You
say.
can't yell to them, you just yell at them.
No, we like them.
Thank you. We appreciate that
Okay.
clarification.
Thanks for coming.
And
Sure.
we look forward to having the Metro District come back to the board in 2024.
No, they'll be here.
And then we can ask you to expand your boundaries so we can get our water tap. No, we don't have that problem anymore.
We need bigger pipes.
Yeah, yeah, well, we need less
Lot more
Kentucky
water
bluegrass.
in general.
Quick question,
Yes,
just
please.
regarding the fire mitigation. We kind of skimmed across fire mitigation. It sounds like, the impression I get is that it's up to the individual in the neighborhood, and that's it.
I saw it differently. I
Did
actually
you?
saw it that they're bringing the caucus in, and the caucus will help to work with the neighborhoods, because it says in caucus-wide
The
scale.
entire caucus there.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think that's key, because it makes a difference when you do something to your property, Greg, but if your neighbors don't, your difference is negated.
Yes, oh,
So-
yes, we're very aware.
And I
Thank
think
you.
the neighborhood evacuation plans, especially in the Brush Creek with your limited ingress egress, is key, and something that should be done much sooner than later, is to come up with a neighborhood and post it so people know how to get in and how to get out. I think that's really gonna be key for your neighborhood.
There's that, and
Greg.
then there's just the potential hazard to the watershed
Yeah.
for a fire out there.
Yeah.
There were extensive recommendations around wildfire mitigation. I just knew we didn't have much time today, and just wanted to bring it to your attention that it is definitely addressed in the plan. And Greg, if you want to go to the plan on the website, you can, there's a little more detail there.
Great,
I
thank
have
you.
2 quick questions. One about the roads. It says a new CDOT access permit. That would be the one at Cozy Point that doesn't have a signalized intersection, Cozy Point and Smith Hill.
Juniper.
Yeah, and
It's actually- yeah,
just so
Juniper-
yeah? Juniper Hill,
Yeah,
but
it
it
is.
goes across to Smith Hill. And because, I want people to know that we've been trying to work with CDOT on the safety of that intersection, and we've not been able to push it up on their priority list, but it doesn't mean we haven't continued to ask them to continue to look at that. The other thing with the airport, about the having people involved with the airport landowners within the plan, be on the citizen input committees at the airport. I think that's a great idea, but we can't force people to be involved unless they want to. Sometimes we wish we could, so we can always reach out if and when because we may have some new subcommittees set up at the airport, especially with flight path and those kind of issues, which we definitely would involve Brush Creek and of course Aspen Village into those, and Woody Creek, because that's where flight change. But there's only so much Pickens County Airport can do with those changes that FAA decides to make. We can give them as much comment, but sometimes they listen and sometimes they don't. But I appreciated that being brought into this master plan. So Ellen, thank you.
Yeah, I'll wrap.
Okay, thanks. Oh, wait, Steve has a question.
Just a comment, the Snowmass Capitol Creek Caucus is working on revising their master plan to bring it forward. And they're having a big debate about the use of the words like request and require and should, what's mandatory, what's highly recommended. That kind of language is, they are struggling with that. So it's interesting to see that this master plan uses, a variety of those kind of words for encouraging or requesting, or I don't know if they use require anywhere, but, and I realize that the whole document is advisory to the county also, so they might need some guidance in terms of how to do the wording on theirs at some point.
Yeah, we've talked a
And
little bit with our committee.
yeah, we did talk a lot about that, and always do in every plan. So we will definitely work with the caucus on trying to come up with the best verbiage there.
Okay, any other questions? Ellen, thank you, and Cindy, thank you.
Thanks, Ellen.
And
Cindy.
could you please pass on our huge thanks to P&Z? They put in a lot of time on these master plans, and we truly appreciate their efforts more than I think they know. So,
And the
Will do.
neighborhood too.
thanks.
Thanks.
All right, anything else? All right, we're going to move on to growth. Thank you. Thanks, Eric, for coming in.
Bye, thank you.
So I don't know who's leading the way on this one.
Me.
So Sydney, would you please clarify for us, what exactly do you need from the board today as far as direction? And because we could talk growth for the next 24 hours.
We could, and we realize you guys have had a long evening and a long day ahead of you, so we'll make this very
That's okay.
quick. Today, what we're asking basically to come out of the meeting with is for you to approve a schedule that we put together for you. We have 49 applicants for the Growth Advisory Committee that we spoke of the last time our group was here as our Growth Committee before you. And we have given you a list of all of the 49 relative to the subgroups and the people that we were asked to try to attract to the committee. You can see the mix there in terms of the numbers of people that we have. Then we also have a graphic for you that gives you the percentages of those groups of people. 20% of the people that applied are part of the development community, 10% are part of the climate energy space, 28% are individuals representing what they believe are the county's values and vision relative to social, economic, and environmental values. We have 14% resident property owners that represent different geographic areas in the county. We have 4% with the real estate community, 4% with property management companies. Other, we've put those into an other category because those folks identified themselves through kind of a proper, what they said was their priority in terms of other. So that 12% we have identified in your packets for you to look at because they give their own text as to what their primary focus is. And we couldn't really ferret that out for you.
Can I ask, and I don't know if this is possible, when the board has submitted their top rankings, can we break down that pie into this pie so we see how the board chose as far as comparison? Did we pick 20% that were development and this? Be interesting to see how well we mirrored
You balance.
or how well we didn't mirror.
Right. And then we only have a 4% with land use planners and attorneys, and then there are 2% with individual experience in agriculture.
That's one person.
that's just one person. So, but that's how it kind of breaks out into that percentage. And just to move you along,
I have a question before we move along. So I don't understand the individuals that represent broad community values and vision as compared to everybody else. Well, doesn't everybody represent that? I mean, I don't get that. So that means that anybody in that category is not in agriculture, they're not land use planners, they're not property management, they're,
they didn't identify themselves that way. They didn't say, I'm leading with the fact that I'm a realtor, or I'm leading with the fact that I'm a land use planner, and I think that that's part of reading all of the material and all of the applications, because people are many things in our community, across the board. But that 28% identified themselves just in this generalized, broad representation of community values that we identified the board's
Yeah,
mission
and there were
and
some
value
that were
statement.
very clear in saying, I may be a land use planner, but I want to be involved in this because I have broader representation as far as. But you'll see, there's a lot, some people spend a lot of time defining their involvement and why they want to be involved. Some people just said, I'm in real estate, period. So it's very interesting to see how people presented themselves.
Right, and we didn't want to
You have to
misrepresent
pay
them.
it's really, it's just,
You'll find it interesting reading.
I've read through all the jobs, and so I definitely didn't see a job that said representing community values and vision. Those are jobs, and these are this is something else. It seems, it doesn't work for me, sorry.
Sorry, Francie, on that, this is how they identified when they were filling out the application. So they could have been an attorney, but when they said what group they want to represent, they selected an individual representing broad community values. So we could have brought a breakdown of all the occupations that were represented, but these are what each individual selected themselves, and then some of them provided additional information. And similar to the other category, there were some people that said, I'm a land use planner, but I also represent broad community values. And so those were hard to try and put in these, which is kind of why we gave you the breakout and that additional information. So when you're reading through, you can see why they decided to select themselves under development or individuals representing broad community. On the previous slide, there were none that selected youth representation. But that's not to say that we don't have young professionals that more identify with the development community. So there's a little more in there than when you dig into the applications. You kind of have to take that of, this is how they decided to represent themselves in the application, even though you can see their profession is an architect or some type of other industry.
I just see it as pretty sneaky, possibly. Like, oh, I know I'm a contractor, but don't worry about that. I really represent community values.
Well, you have to believe in the people and trust their, and then go from there.
No, I don't.
Well, I think I approach it differently, but when I went through the list, I also broke it down, put on my newly learned ability to do this, where they live, whether it's Basalt, Eagle County side, or down Valley, and where they work, what their professions are, and then I wrote down little excerpts from what they presented as to their community values, or their belief in environment, or their experience in the construction industry, or things that jumped out at me that I highlighted and went back through and put down, so that, because it's hard to sort out 50 applications and try and remember who was the top 15, so my first list of 15 was like all over the place. I was still changing my mind at the last minute, so, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say maybe to Francie that there's probably some people who are not authorized to like represent themselves as their profession through their business, their employer, so there's just a bit of
Maybe.
didn't think of
discomfort
that. I
think
there, or
probably
just
for most
choose
people.
not to, choose not to.
And I would trust most people.
Yeah.
It's just that sometimes I think we need to look at this with a little
Yeah, we
bit
don't want a
of,
stacked board. I think it's,
yeah, exactly.
going with a skewed
Mhm.
point of view. I think that's fair.
Steve, please.
When we conduct interviews would be a good time to ferret out this, like what someone's values are, regardless of what their profession is.
Yeah.
And that's where I think is a perfect segue.
Steve, it's like we were chatting.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we're going to ask you now to look at our timeline for committee appointments and how that would work. Today, you know, we've given you all of those applications for you to review, and we would like to ask you to pick your top 15, and we'll see what consensus there is. And if it works out great, then everybody's agreed with everybody, and everybody gets a point, and we know who our committee is. If not, we're going to have to come back and work with you guys to see where those are that didn't quite get the number of votes to make a total consensus, and that way you'll probably say we want to do some interviews there. But we're working with this step by step so that we don't know what that next step is until we know what we need to look at in terms of those interviews and the numbers and how they all line up.
So Kara?
I think the one point that I would call attention to with this process that's been different for some other ones is, and this is for board discussion today, is we're recommending to meet this timeline that we would do interviews where there's not consensus. So maybe the top 10 you all are on board, and maybe there's 10 or whatever that you have questions about, that you're interviewing those where there's not consensus versus interviewing all the applicants. And I think that's for one of the pieces we wanted you all to discuss today.
No, that's
And there's
great.
also, I think, a possibility that we may want to look at maybe not 20 to 25 members. We may want to go to 27, or we may want to go to 18. So the board, I want the board to know there's some flexibility that's still there. And that I think the sooner, it's at least we don't have a 3-wing binder that's this big like we did at the airport. So there's a little more scaled down. But I think being able to rank them and get them back to staff so staff can put it down. So at our next meeting, which will be on the 5th, we can actually look at those and then come up with a plan for interviews, times, and how we want to set that up. Because we've reserved ahead of time, planning ahead with the planning department. We've reserved time in our next 2 work sessions. Specifically on the 12th, we reserved a large block of time just in case.
And you want these by tomorrow night?
We want these, yeah, by the 30th, that's right.
My sister's birthday present,
End of day tomorrow.
End of,
end of day.
Is that midnight or 5? No, really.
We'll give you till 9 a.m. on Friday morning, 8 a.m. on Friday morning,
8 a.m. on Friday.
8 a.m. Friday morning.
Okay.
So that's why I had the luxury of being able to be right here in town, and
Get them early.
I spent a long time, but it's because it's kind of fun to read about people and how they think. And there's some really great candidates who were, you know, but I just want to bring this up really quickly. I'm concerned about the learning curve. We have a lot of people on here who, if you said GMQS, they would have no clue, or TDR. So that is, I think, a huge, I'm looking at you guys. That's going to be a big challenge. I've heard we're looking at a facilitator to help guide people through the process of being on this committee. But I think people need to be, who have applied, need to be well aware there's going to be a lot of homework, and that staff knows how to give them packets, you know, with specific history of TDR program, history of GMQS, so that they can come to the table prepared. Because it is going to be a lot, and I think there's a lot of people who are geared up to really pitch in and play a significant role in this, which is exciting. But on the other hand, we might have people who get in here and say, this is too much homework, you know, and I don't have a clue what you're talking about. But so we need to kind of keep our minds open to that too. Okay, board, anything else? Because Sydney's
Well,
got some more.
Yeah,
now.
so with all that in mind and leading up to figuring out who we need to interview or who you need to interview in that group, we would hope that those interviews could take place on the 12th, and that by the 13th we would have our committee formed, and then we would like to continue to move forward and have our first session where we would ask the board to deliver the message of what your message is, what you're asking the committee to accomplish over the 6-month period, and have that meeting on July 28th, which is, we're hoping to be a 2-hour meeting.
July 28th is,
Something,
It's a
somebody's
Thursday.
gone.
no, I'm gone. I'm in
Yeah.
Denver at a doctor's appointment that I cannot change. Unless,
We kick it off for you.
yeah, I will entrust the board unless my doctor decides that from lab work and x-rays I have done before I go, that I don't need to go, which would be fine too. So I'll work on that. But
We have our employee
we have
picnic
our employee picnic also that day.
earlier in the day.
Yeah, we're just feeling a little bit of the crunch, saying that we wanted to do this within a 6-month period. We advertised that as such, and I know people, your time's really important, and if you put your name in the hat for something like
Yeah,
this.
well, we'll work out that. I mean, I don't need to be at everything, and plus I'm taking the first week of August off for a memorial service I'm planning here in town, so we'll figure it out. It all works out.
The meetings will also be hybrid, so there will be an opportunity for board or members of the public to join remotely if they can't physically be in person.
My doctor's appointment is at 4 p.m.
Oh,
Perfect. I'll just bring my computer in and put it on no screen. I'll put it on no video. The other question I had too, which now I've forgotten, but it'll come to me. Yeah, so I think it'll be great if we can bylaws.
Those are coming before the board for review next week.
And we've pretty much taken a model from advisory, because we've been creating a lot of new bylaws, so that should not be a process that's as time-consuming as other processes
Correct.
for previous boards, because I think we fine-tuned the language. Okay,
I just have one thing about the not interviewing everybody. I think some people look really different on paper, and then when you meet them, you're like, oh, God, this person is really great, I didn't realize, or, oh, this person's kind of slick and slimy, and, I mean, whatever. And so I'm just a little worried about not meeting people at all and just going on what they write.
I truly understand that, but unless you are ready to put in 8 hours of interviews and interview 50 people,
No, I don't want to interview 50 people, I just thought maybe the top,
we can
finalists or
discuss that
something.
after we.
I don't know, I'm not saying I definitely want to, I'm just
No.
concerned that people can look really different on paper than they do in reality.
Well, people look really different on Zoom than they do in reality.
That's
That's for
true.
damn sure. No, I think that's part of the discussion when we see the consensus of the board and how many, Francie, and we can then decide, maybe we want to interview maybe not the top 5, but maybe the next 10. So,
Something like that,
yeah,
yeah.
but so that's a good point for flexibility when we come to the interview process.
Thanks.
We should take that into consideration. Anything else from the board? But go ahead.
Well, it sounds like that schedule is agreeable to the board to look at these, try to get us back your top 15 by Friday morning at 8. And then we'll
I'm ahead
go
of the
from
game.
there, and that we will shoot for on or around the 28th for a meeting, and that if it happens to be on a date when all of the board can't be there, that's okay with the board.
Yeah.
You mean with some of the board can't be there?
Yeah.
All of the board
If-
can't be there,
if
that
some of the
would be
board
interesting.
cannot attend, yeah, right.
Well, I feel very confident that Francie can take this and run with it, since she'll be dealing with it next year. And
I'll
I'll be
do
sitting
all
over
the
where Steve
interviews.
is. Okay, anything else? Because you got us.
I think just the question you had, are we discussing total size today or next week?
I think we need to
wasn't
look
clear.
at what the board
Okay.
looks at as far as applicants.
With that, I think that's everything for now.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you. No, and thank you. And for Kelly and Greg, there were 3 applications that I didn't have in my packet printed. So when I was printing them out, I stuck them in your 3-ring binder, so you'll see them in the front of your 3-ring binders.
Thanks.
And thank you for getting that last one in there. And I didn't mean 5 o'clock, I meant 4:30-ish, not after 5, so we're good.
So there's a total of 50 at this point?
49.
I had 50 on mine.
Just the number, the top line is number 1 in the rows. So that's 49. Thank you.
What are you looking at?
I'm looking at what came in with the letter from them. the names, the applicant name.
You know what, I didn't count, I just was going through them all. I just was
Is it
running
from
out of little
UCAR?
stickies here. Okay. Interesting group. Very interesting group.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you
Thanks, Al.
guys.
Thanks for your work.
Really appreciate it. Ellen, thank you. All right, we are 5 minutes ahead of schedule, so we have Rich. Is Rich with us? Are you? Oh, hi, Rich.
Board?
We are going to discuss the airport advisory board vacancy discussion and how we want to proceed with filling that. And it is a alternate position, is my understanding. And the current bylaw says the alternates have to be Pickens County residents. Is that correct? And so now we're concerned that we may have a board full of Pickens County residents with all the alternates move up. So we didn't think of that in hindsight.
Yeah, thank you, Patty. Board Rich Engelhardt, Deputy County Manager. At our last meeting, you'd asked us to bring this forward, just to have a little bit further discussion on it. And Patty's right, we do have a recent resignation with Rich Berkeley. Rich was appointed as an alternate, and he had moved up to the senior alternate whenever we had replaced Andrew Doremus. So there was some movement early on, so he moved up into kind of that senior role. And the only reason we mention that is that if there's one member of the voting board not there, then the senior alternate gets to vote in their place. If there's two members gone, then both alternates get to vote. So what we would suggest happening here is upon his resignation, we would move Michael Salandez, who you just recently appointed, into his term, which would be Rich Berkeley's term, and then we would fill Michael's term. So in essence, the new candidate coming on would serve for about 10 months for their first term, and then they would serve again, because each of those members had a 1 and a 2-year term. So the Michael Salandez would move into that 2-year term, and then the new appointee would take on his. So the bigger question is two things. Number one is we have about 5 members from that original list that you had contemplated when you did this last time. So one question is, do you want to go back to that, or do you want to go out and advertise for new names? And then secondly, as Patty mentioned, we do need to probably change the bylaws when we bring this back, because if we keep appointing and moving people into a full voting member out of the alternates, and if they have to come from Pickens County, you are going to have a board member or a full slate of Pickens County people. And I guess we just didn't anticipate that when we were working through those bylaws. So it's an easy change. We could probably just request that one has to be Pickens County and one not, whenever you're filling alternate roles.
So who are our 2 alternates? Michael and who else?
Michael Salandez and then Rich Berkeley, who is leaving. So we will fill in alternate with this one.
Good.
Who are the 5 people? Do you have that list in front of you by any chance?
Yes, I do. The 5 that were remaining was Emery Levens, David Perry, Debbie Braun, Nicholas Bryan, and Sean DeWolf.
What does the board want to do? We have some time here because Rich isn't leaving until September. So do we want to go out for a quick 10-day or something advertisement and see if we get some new thoughts? Greg and then Steve.
I would like to do it the way we do it with our rest of our advisory boards. It seems if there's a vacancy, we advertise for it and we invite people to submit, because some of these people may not even be interested in it any longer. And I'd rather put it out there again.
Steve?
I would put it out to, open it up to anybody to apply. I think I would contact the members of the, maybe these 5, or contact people who had applied before, and just say that there is a vacancy. If you wish to reapply, you need to, submit a new application, kind of a thing.
All of the people?
Well, perhaps only the 5 top ones who were kind of, we winnowed out of the other list.
And we're telling them that they're applying to be an alternate.
Right.
Right.
And we need to clarify where they live. Because as Michael lives in Aspen, well, in Pickens County.
He lives on Red Mountain, I think, right?
Yeah, but if we change the bylaws,
Start with,
Somewhere up there, start with somewhere.
what's that, Rich? Sorry.
I was gonna say, if you change the bylaws, then it really doesn't matter. We'll just, one of each. Right now, Michael Melendez, I believe, is Picken County.
Right.
So it would be,
I think we should fill it with somebody who's not a Pickett County resident, because that's one of the purposes, that's something we fundamentally wanted when we created this, was to have this diverse representation. So I'd rather have one in the county and one not in the county. So I think the bylaws amendment would make sense if the board agrees with that. And then I agree with going out for advertising and maybe contacting that top 5, but we'd have to look at the people who are residents outside of Pickens County. Steve?
In terms of changing the bylaws, I think I would not specify that one has to be Pickens County and one has to not be Pickens County. What you could end up is with, on the main board, half the people would then end up being not Pickens County and half would end up being living in Pickens County, potentially. If you always were moving an alternate up and you had one of each. I think that if the alternates can be from inside the county or outside the county, it's up to us when we are appointing a new alternate to consider where they live and what is the mix of residents and non-residents on the board in deciding who to appoint.
Well,
I would leave it flexible, just
that's a good point. I just don't want to mislead people who apply and then we say, well, we're not gonna, sorry you applied, but you don't live in the right place. But I don't know, what does the board want to do?
Do you think there's going to be a public reaction if we have all Pickens County people on the board?
No, but that was something we said we didn't want when we created this.
So you're looking for Down Valley people?
We're looking for diversity, yeah. Eagle County, Garfield County. And within the valley, it was the Roaring Fork Valley. So what does the board want to do? Do you want to just leave that flexible in the bylaws? So that would require a bylaw change, right? To leave it flexible, Rich?
yeah, so, because right now it states that they have to be Pickens County residents,
Yeah.
so.
Kelly, you good with flexible?
I'm gonna think it over, but we can draft the.
Okay. So why don't we draft it as flexible, leave it open to discussion when it comes back to us, and we may, at that point, decide we don't want to be flexible. Is that okay with the board? So we can give Rich some direction? And then as far as, yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
Well, I just would like to, I think we should advertise Down Valley if that's what we're shooting for.
I think so too. We need to use one of those other newspapers
Yeah.
and advertise, so we make sure that the word gets out there throughout the valley, John. You're looking at me with a question mark.
I'm just thinking what publications we're talking about down Valley. Are you looking at like the Post or, because I think the Daily and the Times where we typically advertise are distributed Mid-Valley right now.
Yeah, I pick them up all throughout the valley when I.
They're
So
all
Kelly,
over
is that good
Carbondale.
enough?
They're not so
We
prevalent
can
in
work with
Glenwood.
Marcy on that and figure that out.
It's not that easy to find an Aspen paper in Glenwood.
Oh, I find them there all the time.
You do? Where?
Well, over by Walmart, at Sal Max, they're all over downtown.
If it is in the Post-Independent, then it would be widespread and
But then it goes up and down the I-70 corridor, and don't we have some limitation as to how far down we go?
Yeah, it does state the Roaring Fork Valley.
I think the Post-Independent and the Soper Sun, if you want to get Down Valley people.
Which one would you choose out of those two?
I have to choose one.
Yes,
I would choose the Soper Sun.
I would choose the Soper Sun.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna advertise locally like we always do, and we're gonna put an ad in the Soper Sun, just to let people know that we're looking for applicants within the Roaring Fork Valley who would like to be an alternate on the Pickens County Airport Advisory Board.
And press releases to KD&K and KJAX as well.
Just get the word out there, and we don't want to have too long of a time frame, so whatever Rich, you and Charlotte decide upon, and just let the board know, and then we'll set up interviews for all 45 people, or maybe 50 or 150 people who apply.
Sounds good.
A question regarding the airport, that airport advisory committee. Are we going to meet with them, or have a presentation from their director? I'm just
We're trying to set up a joint meeting.
trying to set
Rich
up a
and I
joint
are really
meeting, or
working on that.
just to know how they're doing. I guess I heard that the first meeting was a little rough, just with if the chair was having a little trouble understanding how to run the meeting. You know, where there are a couple things that seemed like there's just some basic process things that need to be smoothed out. I don't know if that's what your take was. You were probably there, but
Rich and I
Yeah,
are
I
also,
think,
Rich and I are also trying to meet with the chair and vice chair to do some just cursory how to run a board meeting, how to take public comment. We're working on that along with the joint meeting.
great.
Who's the chair?
Yeah, Greg, Jackie's doing a really good job. She did miss one. Meg stepped in for her, but she's doing a great job of working through it. Each meeting we learn something new that we can help, but she's done a nice job of keeping the meeting flowing and going well. We had our first vote, as you know, the last meeting, and so we'll talk about that process a little bit more.
Great, thank you.
Board.
Thanks for bringing
Excellent.
that up, Greg. All right. Everybody good? Rich, you have direction?
I do, thank you.
Okay, all right. So we are now at 2:00. We are at citizen board interview. I don't think Allison's not here till 2:45, so should we do future agendas, Mr. Peacock?
We can. You did have a break on there if you wanted.
Does the board want to take a break now? Are we good?
I'm good.
Let's do future agendas and then we'll take a break.
Just a sec here. Okay, got quite a few items for the board on future agendas. So every year we do a joint meeting with CDOT, and they have requested a time on our August 23rd agenda. Right now, this agenda looks open, and we've put a hold on 1 p.m. For an hour. That was CDOT's request to go through the updates that they typically give to communities.
Did you say the 23rd?
August 23rd.
23rd, yeah.
Oh, August.
August 23rd, yeah, sorry. If I got the wrong month there, that's a big problem. No, it's August 23rd. And, we could schedule more time. I know the board sometimes has additional topics. I was saying Greg might have one, for example, that he wants to bring up.
You bet I do.
Yeah.
We're buying Greg a broom, so we've solved that.
I'll take it.
If we wanted to, schedule some additional time for
Would the
those
board like more
discussions.
than an hour if CDOT can spare an hour and a half?
I think it's gonna depend on the rain this summer and whether or not we have closures in the canyon and subsequent traffic problems on 82. That would require more time, I think.
Well, because Greg would have this road cleared off if we had a subsequent rain, so. So let's do an hour and a half, book it,
And maybe it'll
and
go
see if
faster.
CDOT can do that. It's better to have a little more time with them than to cut them off. I don't want to do that. So we'll do an hour and a half, Charlotte, for that.
Canyon was closed yesterday with warnings of flash floods.
And I'm assuming we could
They
let
didn't
them.
materialize, but.
Oh, sorry about that. I assume we can let them know, Greg. I suspect you
Yeah,
want
we'll
to
give them
talk
some
about
advance.
highway cleanup a little
Yeah, I think that's certainly on my list.
Highway
And
cleanup?
signage too. I understand some of those signs now are superfluous. I'm not sure the Dalwhinnie is even paying to clean up the highway anymore, but their
I was going to
advertising
stop
is
by
still
there
there.
to see if they're organizing a community cleanup, but I couldn't get in the shop. I
So
didn't have
I'd
my
like to talk
ID.
about unnecessary superfluous signage as well as negligence from cleaning the shoulder of the road. Those are
I
the
think
two
we might want to
things.
term
I'll
that a
take
little
negligence out,
differently.
but
So-
that's
What
what
do
it
you
is.
mean? What are you talking about?
Well, it's a mess. The shoulders along the highway are a mess. If you happen to be riding a bicycle, or even you have a car stopped, you're in broken glass and abandoned tools and scissors and firewood and construction materials. They don't clean the highway, and there's certain areas where I think they should. And so I just want to point that out to them.
Are they supposed to clean the highway?
I think they should.
It's their highway.
It's their highway.
Okay, John.
All right, next week at the work session, we're planning on bringing back, STR fee recommendations, so I don't think that was on your last set
So
of
that's
future
the 5th?
agendas. Correct.
Yeah, I didn't see that on the agenda, so we need to add that. How long would you like, John?
Um,
An hour?
I was saying 15 minutes, but no, probably 45 minutes.
45 minutes?
I think it could be less than that. It could also be a lot more than that, depending on.
So Charlotte, are you making notes? Because I am too.
Yeah,
Perfect.
well, we had that letter from that woman about the difference between 7 days and 7 months worth of rentals, and should they be paying the same fee? So there is something to discuss.
Yeah,
sure.
so we'll have some options for the board to look at along those lines. And so also we've added a prep for the joint City of Aspen meeting on July, which is going to happen on July 19th to the July 5th agenda. So I don't think that had shown up yet.
So that's July 19th. Does the board have any topics for that? Would they please submit them to John or myself? I'm going to be meeting with Tori here shortly to fine tune a list to bring back to the city and county managers.
And Charlotte, are we doing APSHA at that meeting,
Appointment?
or-
Yes, we're supposed to be doing APSHA interviews, but there are no applicants at this point.
So, yeah.
You can't hear me? Oh, can't hear Charlotte.
Oh.
Sorry.
So the answer Charlotte gave was that, yes, the intention was to do the interviews for APSHA candidates. Unfortunately, at this point, we have not had any applications for the APSHA board vacancy.
Just the renewal.
Just a renewal. Okay. So John, will you start keeping a list too, and then when I meet with Tori, I can grab it from you?
Yep.
So if you hear anything from the board. So if you guys have any thoughts.
I'm sure that the closing of the offices and the article in the paper about threats was really encouraging for people to volunteer to join the board at APJA.
Well, it's that trust people have in APSHA right now.
Or the stress people have over housing right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in
that
combination.
for sure.
It's a perfect combination. You got it, Kelly. Okay,
And
John.
then last thing, there is a Burlingame Early Childhood Education Center kind of gathering and project update that the board should have received a notice for July 13th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. We are just going to go ahead and put that on future agendas in case more
Because
than
we have a regular
two of you
meeting on the
end up there.
13th. So, yeah, I will not be attending the Burlingame Early Childhood. I don't know, Kelly, but we do have a regular meeting that day. So if the board is interested in going, we're gonna go ahead and post it, Charlotte, yeah, just in case? Anybody driving home wants to swing through Burlingame and see how they're gonna spend $12 million? Perfect.
It's a city project.
But it might be something we might have a role in at some point.
And then we are also going to be looking for time. We do not have this scheduled yet, but during budget, we had talked about the possibility of putting an ambulance district ballot question on. We have notified the clerk that we may be reserving space for that. We are going to be working up some alternatives and numbers in partnership with the hospital, ambulance district staff, and ourselves to be able to bring that forward. So we'll schedule some work
And
session
Phyllis
time.
had sent me some of the stuff from the previous election. It wouldn't print out, so, and she's on vacation, correct? Charlotte,
Yeah.
is Phyllis out of
She's-
town?
Back today, I believe.
Okay, I'll get in touch with her to see if she can print it, and, because it wouldn't, it printed with big blocks of wording and paragraphs that were missing, so.
That's all I got.
Okay, does the board have anything else you want to bring forward for? We've been trying to check off on our list. We will, hopefully sooner than later, we're gonna, John, we need to figure out how we're gonna block off some time and really have a in-depth housing discussion on funding opportunities and ballot question opportunities and changing the state constitution opportunities and whatever we might be able to do, and just see how well our, our housing impact fee is progressing and all those kind of things. I think we need to have a really broad range inclusive discussion on how the county can start playing a role in housing opportunities from all different aspects. So, and I think that will be important as part of our resiliency planning for the Valley-wide housing organization. So I want to make
I
sure.
expect the city is gonna wanna hear from us.
Oh, I already
and-
heard from the
and
city,
I-
let me tell you. Yeah,
Can we have a conversation that is
includes the city?
professional? I think that, you know, they deserve a response from us. I think we have activities that they're unaware of that we should present as far as what we're doing on the housing front. And, you know, I sort of regret that we didn't give their letter a little more respectful airtime.
You're
Well-
regretting that, or they regretted it?
I'm regretting.
Yeah, and
that
I'm
we didn't receive their letter as a formal letter from a board of our colleagues to us, and just had a more structured conversation related to it. We kind of glossed over it pretty quickly in open discussion.
They kind of, was a last minute slide under the door sort of thing the day of the meeting. I don't think they really prepared very well in presenting it to us, so I think we were given an offer, and we pretty much had a conversation, decided not to do it. It wasn't the outcome they wanted, but I think we had a good conversation. Nevertheless, I'm happy to have a longer conversation about it, and I think we should. But they were, I'd say, last minute, quite hasty in presenting that to us,
When
and they
was
expected
this?
us to act on it very quickly.
The last joint meeting?
No,
Well,
the letter we just got from the
The conversation we
city.
had from the city last week, and then they didn't get the outcome they expected, and they're upset. I understand that.
Well, you know, and I think
It deserves a
Kelly's,
lengthier
I
conversation.
think Kelly's key words
That's what I'm saying.
are respectful. We need to have a respectful conversation where we're not yelling across street corners at people, so that we can approach this. And so I think the sooner we get this on time, where the Board of Commissioners can have a discussion and then be prepared to meet with the city and talk about it in a
Well, I would
respectful
recommend
manner.
that for our joint meeting,
Yeah, well, that would be the whole joint
be
meeting,
my recommendation with them.
yeah. So that, between that, it would be our whole joint meeting. So we may want to consider that. And I think our joint meeting is 4 hours, maybe 5? But I think that's worthy of consideration, but that would mean, John, we'd have to have our housing discussion prior to the 19th.
Okay.
And I don't know when we'll fit that in.
Well,
We'll talk
it
about
will
it.
not be well prepped from the staff perspective, but I think it's more of a policy level discussion, frankly, with the board as far as how you want to respond.
Do we have
So
any
we
time
can-
on the 5th?
we
That's
can-
next Tuesday?
Well, the thing is, we're not responding to the request to put something on the ballot this late, are we? Are we still?
That's part of the discussion, that's still
Okay,
what the
you wanna
city is
open that
at.
up again.
Well, there's some members of the city, I think, are still asking that, and I think others, yeah, it's just, this is
I
just
think we
sidebar
should give a
conversation.
clear response as to all the activities that we're pursuing on the housing front right now, currently, and what we are working on for future projection, which would involve that conversation as a point of it, but I don't think that needs to
I
be
think
the-
Kelly-
I don't personally think that is the only focus.
Yeah.
No, but I think Kelly, her
Agreed.
point being so well made is that there's things that they're not aware of that we and our staff are working on and plans, and we need to have that discussion in a formal, polite situation, rather than just bypassing each other on the street.
Well, because ultimately, we're gonna be hopefully partners, on some of this.
Sooner
so.
than later, we hope. So,
We do have time on the 5th. Staff, we will probably not have time to prepare anything for your packet other than setting aside time.
I
for
think
the
we need to set
conversation.
aside time. If we're gonna have the discussion on the 19th, we need to have a discussion at this board level before that.
Yep.
Or I'm not gonna have it on the 19th if we're not prepared to go into that, because I don't think it'll be productive.
And I'm happy to lay out some thoughts on that. One of the things I was gonna bring up for future agendas was, I thought there was some interest to have APSHA come and kind of present to our board about the state of the APSHA inventory and answer questions we have about the regulations. I continue to think that needs to happen as part of our formulating of our, a clear vision around housing.
Good.
I thought we were trying to do that, but we hadn't been able to
Yeah, well, we had talked to Matthew about it, and we need to probably follow up again and see on that.
All right, so we'll look at some time. Charlotte, we can touch base on that for the 5th.
Thank you.
Francie?
Do we
Kelly,
want
are
to
you
think
done?
about what, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I just want to continue to plug the Agriculture Advisory Board. I don't know.
Are
where
you
that's
going, are you
at,
going tomatoes
or-
on your porch now?
I'm not. I just went with the annuals this year. No plan.
I'll get you a tomato.
Anyway.
Plug the meaning.
Okay, we do,
Plug
we
like
do-
that.
we do need to talk
Can we have
with
a
ComDev about that,
conversation
John.
about if we are going to have this board and appoint this board and what staff would staff this board and what the board might do and if
Yeah.
we want this
Do
board.
we even need it, right?
You know.
Well, and I think we need to talk, because now Open Space and Trails does have an agricultural manager, so I think we need to bring that into the loop and see, because that would be, between that and ComDev is where this committee, if we create one, should probably be landing. So we need to find out how we can get
Well,
that
there's
on.
Water stuff. Yeah.
Let's just, it doesn't need to be like before the 19th of July, so let's look at some time, between here and,
The next growing season.
which in my house is right now.
Which is year-round with cattle.
Yeah.
And sheep.
Okay. Francie?
Do we want to discuss when we want to go to Redstone and what that's going to look like? Because if we don't start thinking about when, it will slip away.
I believe that community development is working on that. We need to follow up with Cindy and staff to see when we might have, because we need to think about how we're going to manage a meeting and what topics we're going to discuss as far as short-term rental and opportunities that might be unique in the Redstone area, specifically on the boulevard.
Yeah, we've we've got a lot of transition happening in community development right now, as well as some major projects. We are going to need to talk about capacity and how you want to approach this.
We don't want to go down there willy-nilly, because I think that'll just, the pots will be
Well,
stirred.
do we
but-
want to wait until after Cindy's gone and not try to cram it all in?
Yeah, because Cindy leaves on
Like next
Friday.
week or something, and, so when it's not
Friday.
quite so transitional, but I mean, do we want it about August or September, or just put it out there in some form?
Yeah, and I think we could use some direction from the board. It might be good before the board goes down for us to maybe have some preliminary meetings to collect some information, have some facilitated discussion down there.
I'm thinking in the fall.
Yeah.
Did you have more you wanted to add to that?
Well, just as far as getting some feedback ahead of time, so that the board has some more structure for when you do go down there, you can maximize the benefit of your time with the community that way.
So realistically, September?
Probably, that would probably be more realistic at this
Okay.
point.
So I'm saying sometime in the fall.
That sounds good. September.
Okay. Steve? Greg?
I'm
Greg,
good.
please. Steve? Greg?
Did you have something?
No.
Back in February, we received a note regarding the Gunnison Public Lands Initiative for the Star Peak proposed wilderness area. And I just received another email this morning, which I shared with the board and staff regarding would we be willing to pass a resolution on it or sign a letter in support of it, along with Gunnison County and the other participants, Wilderness Workshop and others who are advocating for this. And it came back, I sent it out in February, and I can't recall
February?
what happened. Yeah, so it's time, I'd like to bring it back. Of course, they'd love to come and present to us if we have the time, but it may not require that.
Do we have a draft letter that somebody else has sent that we can review?
We've got that, and I forwarded that, I believe, this morning.
I didn't
and so
see
I'm
it come through
circling
this
back
morning on
again.
me, so. But why doesn't the board take a look at it? We can maybe bring it up at open discussion next week.
Yeah, just wanted to give a heads up on
Don't
that.
let us forget though, Greg, please.
We're
Steve,
still
did you
on
have-
future agendas, right?
We're still on future agendas. Did you have more?
No, general discussion, open
Okay,
discussion.
Steve?
No, I'm good.
Okay, well, we do have an applicant on, Charlotte, and we've got Charlotte. Does the board mind? Hi. So Charlotte, since we've got you here and it's a little early, do you mind if we interview you early?
Allison?
Allison? You need to unmute.
Would you, We can't hear you. You're on mute.
Have to,
Can he hear? No. You need to star 9?
There should be a mute button on your Zoom screen there, Allison.
Bottom left, maybe?
Also, we still are not able to hear you.
Are we able to unmute?
I can ask her to unmute.
Okay, we'll hold on one sec. We can read lips. Oop.
Maybe she needs to do the star 9.
Andrew, have any thoughts?
Allison, if you're using the Zoom app, there should be an unmute button at the bottom of your screen there on your phone. If you've dialed in with your phone, you may have to press star 6 to mute or unmute yourself. But
Oh, star
usually if
9's
you've
raise
got
your
video,
hand.
she should be on the app.
When I've been in Zoom meetings, particularly with this board, and not been able to be heard, I've gone out and come back in.
But my Zoom meeting volume is at the top of the screen.
Yeah, Allison, maybe just try leaving the meeting and then rejoining. Perfect.
So while we're doing that, would the board like to take 10 and get Allison back with volume, with,
Yes.
we'll be back. So 10 minutes, guys, is that okay? Grassroots, we're gonna take 10.
thank you.
Welcome back. Today is Wednesday. What day is it? Today is Wednesday, June 29th. My sister's birthday is tomorrow. I have to remember this. This is a Board of County Commissioners work session. Before we start our interview for the one of our appointed committees for Pickett County, I want to thank the voters yesterday. I should have done this at the beginning of the meeting. We had a good turnout. I would encourage people, please, in November, get your ballots in early, because it was pretty brutal for the election judges who processed ballots till the wee hours of the morning to make sure that everybody's right to vote was respected. And we did a great process, and we were really impressed that people voted. And please read the directions next November, because we spent a lot of time with ballots that were incorrectly filled out. Not signed, lots of things. So please, when you vote, there's directions that come with it. And but we greatly appreciate people taking the time to exercise their constitutional right to vote. So that being said, we're going to move on to one of the fun things we get to do. We get to interview for the Aspen Animal Shelter Board. We have Charlotte here. Charlotte, would you please introduce our interviewee? And thank you for being here.
Yes, Allison Richmond is joining us virtually, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for applying, Allison. We have one Pickett County alternate vacancy on the Animal Shelter Board, and Allison is applying for that position. We've been advertising, and we are continuing to advertise, but we have not received any other applications at this time.
Okay, and so, Allison, welcome. So I will just really briefly tell you how the process works. First of all, we would like to welcome you. We really appreciate your taking the time to apply. The Animal Shelter Board is really fun. It's a great board. They are very active. You get to work with Seth at the animal shelter with all the animals, and we love it. We all love it out there. So we're going to just give you a chance to just introduce yourself. I'll turn it back to the Board of Commissioners to ask a few questions, and then we'll let you ask some questions of us. We take about 15 or so minutes, but we're a little ahead, so if we need a little more time, we're good. And then the board will consider, and we do the appointments formally by resolution at a Board of Commissioner regular meeting, and I think you are the only one. Application process has closed.
Actually, we are continuing to advertise.
For
but,
how much longer?
I mean, I can take it off if you
Okay.
decide
Perfect.
to.
Okay,
to
so we
appoint.
just have this one position to fill. So Allison, please introduce yourself and let us know why you'd like to be part of this amazing board.
Well, thank you very much. And in regard to some of the items you have said, thank you all for doing your civic duty, as I'm hopeful to be able to do in return for our county and everywhere in Colorado. My name is Allison Richmond, and I've lived here in the Aspen Valley area for about 14 years or so. I am a private chef, and I do know Seth and a lot of the things that happen there. I've never seen an ad in the paper, and then I saw y'all's ad about the citizen board, and I thought in doing civic duty, maybe it's time to step up and do that. I just don't really know, which is a question back at y'all, exactly what the expectation is of me and what it takes. I am obviously busy, as you all are too. I just would like to know what I have to do to participate in this, and be part of the community and give back and see it grow. I mean, I do have opinions, and I think that if you don't speak up or participate in different parts of government, then your opinions don't go anywhere. That's short and sweet for myself. And I have lived in the Aspen area. Now I live in Holland Hills, out towards the Roaring Fork Club. But I don't really plan to leave, and I really love it here. And I'm sorry I couldn't make it in person, but coming backwards to go forward, as you all know and probably discuss all the time, was not very feasible for me today.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to turn it back to the board. Who would like to start with questions? Steve?
So, yeah, Allison, I was a little bit taken aback by a chef, a master chef, applying to be on the animal shelter board, but I noticed one of your hobbies is dog walking. So could you describe your interest in in dogs and cats, I think are the main clientele there at the animal shelter, but could you tell about your experience with pets?
Yes, well, I was born in Florida and I grew up in Idaho on a farm, and I've gone through 4-H and had every animal in the world. And yes, kind of a side hobby is I, walk or help take care of some of even my clients' dogs. And as I've been watching in this community grow, and it really doesn't matter where you are monetarily, but it seems like everyone has a dog, and or 2 or 3 these days. I've always participated personally in the events that happen at the shelter, and Seth, I know pretty well, and a lot of the clients that go there for doggy daycare and such items. And I think it's a great thing that the city, if I understand everything correctly, supports and or owns or gives back for the community at the shelter there. So I just think it's a great place for me personally to start. That's my reflection with animals in general, and I love them. But I just, it wouldn't make sense for me to get on, say, the APJA board, since I am not part of that situation. So I thought I'd start a little slower if it works out for me as well.
Great.
Well, thank you. And, it doesn't matter which board you apply for. A couple of us as commissioners have served for quite some time on the weed advisory board for the county. So, we're dealing with the low life of plant life in the county before we became commissioners.
I want to clarify, that's the noxious weed board.
Noxious weed,
Well,
yeah.
I was going to say go thistle, but we all know we don't want it to grow.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else here I'm glad, Steve, you clarified that, knowing that, my first thought was we're going to have well-fed animals at the animal shelter if you get on the advisory board. So, but now I know you have this other side passion. So any other members of the board have questions or comments? Kelly?
Yeah, I think we should answer Allison's question. And I have to say I'm not 100% sure, but I think the county, as a function of the county, has an animal shelter and provides animal protection services, and we do that through the animal shelter, which is run as its own nonprofit. Is that right? And we've endowed some of those services, and that's why we have this board to advise that organization.
And they
Anything else
meet
I'm
how
missing?
often?
Yeah.
And Allison, I will have to get with Tara. She was unable to make it today. She's the Picking County Board liaison. Right now, the information that I have is the third Tuesday of May and October is when they meet. But there was a recent transition. Riri Baker used to be liaison, and so I'll have to check in with Tara. It might be that they have quarterly meetings now, but I'll get that information for you.
Great, thank you.
Terrific. Thank you.
Greg, you're good?
What do they meet about?
They meet about dogs and cats and parrots and geckos.
What is the animal shelter? I don't know anything about it.
Do you have the,
I can tell you a lot of what they do there is they help with the Friends of Aspen Friends of Animals, or
yeah,
They do a major fundraiser
they do. They work
each year.
a lot on fundraising and managing those funds as far as providing services, especially spay and neutering. And it's an amazing structure, a building, and so I think the advisory board also helps give advice on any capital improvement projects and that kind of use. But a lot of it is because they are a nonprofit. They have a 501c3, so they have to have an appointed board or elected board, I believe.
They're out at Public Works.
They're at the animal shelter. We got to take you. God, we got to show you around town, Francie. Yeah, it's an amazing facility compared to when I first came to town, and it was located in, I'm not even sure what kind of building you would call it, in the middle of the ABC, and that's where I first took my dogs when I first moved to town. So it was a great transition from in the middle of the AABC to this property, which was partially owned by the city and county. It was a joint venture with the city and county to help to provide the land and some infrastructure issues and some of the improvements and necessary permitting, et cetera, to build a facility. And it's a pretty amazing what they do, and the rescue efforts, and just the adoption services that they provide, and just the overall well-being of pets, animals in Pickens County. So when they work closely with Pickens County Animal and City of Aspen and Snowmass Village for dog rescues and lost dogs and those kind of things. So, Steve.
So I think, Allison, it's good that you know Seth, because Seth is, defines what the Aspen Animal Shelter is.
He's the man.
And you've
Oh, yes,
already
he is.
well acquainted with him. Sounds like you have a good, good background with working with people's pets. I think a lot of what Seth has to deal with is people as much as pets. They're, maybe that's the harder part of his job, but anyhow, thanks for applying for this board. It sounds like to me you would be a good fit for it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I really would like to see them successful. I really care for the animals more than the people, and I know Seth has to deal with the people, specifically the grooming part of the business there. That's been blowing up. It's quite profitable in some aspect, but getting staff, as you know, or qualified people is tough. And then he has to deal with the dog owner that comes in and says, "Oh my gosh, this is my cut," things like that. So. I do know the pain that he goes through.
All right, Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Allison, for applying. I was just wondering, how familiar are you with the operation of the shelter, and a little bit about your own history with animals, with pets?
About the operation, just what I kind of walk into or talk to Seth about. I know he does sled dogs, and I know that they go to, or he has in the past, I know since one baby and maybe the second baby here, almost here, he's done a little less flying to Indian reservations and adopting and bringing pets here to get adopted out, but he does a huge amount of that. And then of course the grooming aspect, and then they have a doggy daycare, and the kitties, and people can of course go there and walk a pet, an animal, so that these guys get out a little past the gate. I do know that's very helpful for the emotional and mental state of the animals in general. Staying in inside locked cages is not always good, and it doesn't help them to acclimate. But my own personal background is just really growing up with a lot of different animals, dogs specifically. I've personally had a Commodore, an Akita, a Weimaraner, German Shorthair, Brittany Spaniels, Jack Russells. My mother used to breed them. I am an advocate for the animals, as I'm sure a lot of people that have donated to that animal shelter can tell you that they are too, more than the people. So that's really what guides me to kind of get my feet wet in starting something like this. And I would like to see more people participate in government. I think people aren't doing it very often now.
Great, thanks. Just another question was what changes would you like to see at the shelter?
Well, I'd really love to see that the grooming part could grow, if possible. There is a huge need in this valley. We have Laura at Barking Beauties. We have a couple down valley, the doghouse and so on. But, he provides that service to people. People don't know it's there. And I think that could grow. And I just think they do a great operation there. I'm not even sure if I answered your question 100%.
Yeah, just wondering what your if you thought something could, that kind of answers it. Grooming.
I have a feeling if she gets appointed to this board, she's going to see some. Thinking when she said she's outspoken and she fights for the animals, I think we'll be in good hands.
Well, thank you.
It's sometimes a little too outspoken.
Thank you for applying.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that.
There's no such thing as really?
No.
It's not. It's
not. I've tuned into you guys before. You definitely say it like it is sometimes.
So the plan now will be, we'll bring it back to the board at a time, maybe later today for discussion, and then we will consider your application, and I think I know which direction we're going to be leaning, and it'll come back before the board on a formal resolution. It's a one reading for passage, And we do have a meeting set for the July 13th is our first meeting for the month. So we will be in touch with you, and you do not ever hesitate to stay in touch with us.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. If someone just wants to lay out at some point to me if it's quarterly or what the meeting expectation is going forward, and then I'll let you guys decide and we'll go from there.
Perfect.
But I really appreciate your time.
Perfect.
And
Thank
for
you.
your service.
I'm glad we could hear you today.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, well, we're used to that. So thank you very much. Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Allison.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye. Okay, before the board, we move on, we could close the application period. I mean, why don't we just get to this now?
Not ready to do that yet.
You're not? Okay. So let's let it go another week, Craig? Okay. I would be ready to make a decision, but how's the rest of the board feel? This is a,
I'm gonna ask around.
okay? Okay.
Yeah, I think she would be fine, but, let's give it there's not a rush.
How long has it been
Give
open?
Give it a week.
Something's going on.
Well, I've had it on the website for quite a while, and, as space allows in the Daily News ad, I put it in there.
Okay.
I do have it scheduled to run for Monday, July 4th,
Okay.
so I can
Yeah,
remove it.
so let's
or-
just give it a couple more days and then bring it back.
Okay.
Good. So we could always make a decision on the 5th and still have it on the 13th if we choose to go in that direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Charlotte. So the next item, I believe, do we have I think we have Mr. Ely here. We're a little early. John, are you here? Oh, you're in the room.
I don't recognize you.
Jeez, that just shocked me. John, do we need to delay this item until later, or can we discuss it now because we have it noticed for the for 3:15?
I know Marcy was going to be here and Jeanette was going to call in.
There's Marcy.
Right behind you.
See, she's in the room, John.
We're ready to go.
Is Jeanette here? Does the board want to go ahead and proceed with this?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Mr. Ely, who's in the room. Marcy, hi, nice to see you again in the room.
And let me mention to the board, too, that present in the room also is David Cook and Spencer McKnight, who are the owners of our locally owned newspaper, wanting to listen to the discussion.
Okay, we welcome them, as always. Nice to see you, gentlemen.
So, thanks to Jeanette, as always, fishing up an ancient resolution. The last time that the board entertained and took an action on this particular topic was in 1993, when the Aspen Times was designated the official publication for purposes of notices and advertisements of Pickens County. Since that time, we have not revisited the issue at all. And quite independent of any other discussions going on, I think it's something that personally think it's something that should be revisited, at least with some periodicity.
Every 30 years or so.
Every 10, maybe, I don't know.
We'll go for
Just
35,
Just
but-
to see, I mean, what's going on? What's the state of the law? What's the state of the publication and what's happening? So I think that this discussion is timely, if for no other reason than for that. I don't really have a presentation for the board. I'm more here to answer questions, but I will say that obviously everybody's familiar with the publications here in town, and that we are. I mean, I don't even know of another community that has two papers to look at. That's a stunning abnormality in these times, even for major metropolitan areas anymore. So our two publications that service Pickens County are both under the law considered to be published here, regardless of ownership. The activities that the law recognizes that go into publication are conducted locally within Pickens County, and so they are considered to be published here locally. Both publications under the state law, under state statutory law, qualify for designation as an official publication for Pickens County, capable of publishing all of our legal notices for actions of the board, whether they're land use or ordinances, resolutions, agendas, whatever that might be. And both qualify in spades, actually, as far as I know. Although in talking to both David and Spencer, the status of the Daily News, I recently confirmed. I have not confirmed the current status of the Aspen Times. So,
As far as voter
What was the last
readership
thing
or?
you said?
well, the qualifications are acceptance for mailing with the United States Postal Service under a periodical designation or classification. The other is continuous publication based upon the type of periodical you're talking about. So both are dailies, and so the bar, which is very low, is that they need to have been in continuous publication for only the last 6 months. And of course, both have been in continuous publication for a heck of a lot longer than that. So those are the qualification marks that a publication must enjoy to be designated as a county's official publication for purposes of notices and both for legal notices and for other advertisement type notices.
And you reached out to both papers and you just heard back from the Daily and not from the Aspen Times as to?
No, I did not reach
Okay,
out to the
okay.
Aspen Times,
Okay.
simply because they currently are
Are
the
the-
designated
okay.
paper. And
They
I
are
wasn't
the
looking to undo every action that we've had for the last,
They are the legal place where we post our notices. Okay, bring it to the board.
So,
Steve.
John, I'm trying to remember, and maybe Kelly remembers, but CCI was looking at the bill that would allow counties to no longer publish the legal notices in a newspaper,
Do it electronically?
that they could do it online. I think that ended up dying in the process and was not passed. So then, that means it's still a legal requirement that
I thought it was
counties
vetoed by
publish in a
then
local
Governor.
newspaper the legal notice.
right.
I thought it passed and was, yeah, Kelly's right, it was
I think maybe
vetoed.
the governor vetoed it. And I think maybe it passed the legislature, but the governor vetoed it or
And
something.
it's been, that's been discussed on and off for years.
And then CCI hasn't taken it up since then. That was maybe 3 years ago or something that last action happened.
Right. The status of the law did not change, and the important, more salient points of it that we've just talked about right now are still in place and effective, and are requirements for all counties in the state.
So before, Francie, so does the county currently do both? Do we electronically post and post in local newspaper?
As far as I know, we do both.
That's what I thought.
There might be instances where the website posting is not pursued, but for action to take place in front of this body, everything does appear in the paper.
Yeah, clearly, and it's easily accessed on the county website now when you want to pull up agendas, agenda packets, et cetera.
Right.
Okay. Francie, did you have?
Yeah, so you said, so I'm bringing it to the board. What exactly are you bringing to the board? What are we talking about here?
We're talking,
What do you need from us? What? I mean, you talked about
A
the fact
decision
that
to-
both
What do you
districts are allowed
need
to
from
add-
me?
I need
What do you need from
clarification.
me?
So,
What am I supposed to be responding to here? I mean, are
Francie,
you asking for something?
wait, I think the issue at hand.
We asked him to
Okay,
come to
okay,
us.
Wait, I think the issue at hand, and correct me if I'm, got the wrong issue at hand, is that we have not looked at this document that Jeanette found from 1990s,
1993.
before any of us were on the board.
Actually, you were.
Except you.
Oh, shoot, I was. I think I signed
Yep,
it,
you
right,
signed
John?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Bill Toot signed it, but I signed it.
So Bill 2 was before me. No, I didn't get on the board till 1999. Don't get me confused here. I'm old enough as it is.
You sure?
Yeah.
And so?
So, are you rushing me?
Yeah.
You don't let me rush you,
With
so.
apologies, but.
Oh, okay. Well, apology, I don't know. Let me think about it. So it's to bring to us to see if we want to change the manner in which we post our ads in the local paper, which means which paper we use and how and when we might want to review our postings. Because we, I don't think every 30 years we should be looking at prices and changes in local newspapers and whatever we want to consider, so on a more regular basis. So I think there's two issues. Do we want to stay where we are right now with with the newspaper that we're using? Do
Which
we
is
want
the
to
Aspen
consider
Times.
changing? And then do we want to bring this back on any kind of a regular basis to review and evaluate?
Okay, so does it have to be just one publication?
One publication is designated as the official publication, and the reason it's done that way is simply make it easier on the public. Once you establish a particular publication, then that's the publication that people are going to look for to see what are we up to? What have we noticed that we're going to take action on? That way it's in one location, in one paper, and more easily kept track of.
But this discussion is not about rates. This is about philosophical
No, but there is a
issues, correct?
significant expenditure on a yearly basis, so for us to do it in both papers would have a significant hit, right, John?
So we do currently advertise in both papers, substantially the same. I think the board was having, I believe, a conversation about potentially looking at that advertising strategy and maybe focusing on one paper. If that were to be, for example, the Aspen Daily News, we would need to make a change in our paper of record. And I know Marcy has put a lot of information together that we can share with you on how much we're spending and feedback that we've gotten from the organization too.
Question, I was thinking maybe Marcy would be the one to answer this. It's funny, sometimes when I'm looking for public notices in the paper, I have trouble finding them. And I used both, I'm a hybrid. I go online and I look for the news online, and then I usually get a hard copy as well. And I'm just wondering, when we publish an advertisement or notices what's happening at the county this week, that sort of thing, does that get published online as well through the papers? Or is it just on our website, or is it only in print in the paper?
Well, like John said, the notices, which are different from
The required notices.
the advertising that the county does, are likely both done online, and I believe the advertising.
Turn your mic on.
Sorry, I'm new to this.
Red light.
So the noticing and the advertising are two different things. The noticing is sort of the legal side of things, and like John said, it's likely online and in the printed paper. And the advertising that we do, I believe, is also both. But I'm not entirely sure about that, but
Okay.
I can get
Could
you
be-
an answer.
And then do you have numbers, like how much do we spend each year?
Yeah, so this is just advertising. It's not noticing. So in 2021, we spent $115,912 with the Aspen Times, countywide across departments. And this year, we have spent just over $30,000. That's up through the May invoicing in the Aspen Times. And just as a comparison, in 2021, we spent $61,364 in the Aspen Daily News on advertising, and in 2022, year to date, we've spent about $18,200 in the Aspen Daily News, and we do about the same amount of advertising, but the rates in the Aspen Daily News are more affordable.
Is that based on circulation, or is it based on better pricing?
I'm not sure.
We don't know. We don't have the
Yeah.
answer to that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't
But-
know
And
the
then
answer
when
to
we do
that.
public notices,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
that's going to be official notices, the mandated statutory notices go into the Times. And do we have any idea what that costs us?
I think Jeanette had an idea. I believe it was around $5,000 a year.
Okay.
and she's coming back on, so
Okay,
she.
so Jeanette, do you know how much it costs us to advertise for the public notices, not for advertising, but for printing the public notices in either or both papers on an annual basis approximately?
Approximately 5,000 a year, and that is based, Patty, on a line item. There is 2 different line items that is under state statute, and one line item is for public notices, which is something that the BOCC publishes, like an IGA or whatever. And then there's the private notice, different line item for that, that is for private. And anybody who makes an application to the Community Development Department, then that is a different line item, a different cost. But it's the prices are statutorily set.
Okay, thank you. So, question is for the board, do we want to, I'm gonna do the easy one first. Do we want to bring back on a regular basis a review of advertising and public notices? Kelly?
Yeah, we should do that. I would suggest maybe 2 to 4 years when commissioner posts change, perhaps.
So we'll determine a reasonable time frame. I'd pick 3. But, so let's come up with something reasonable to bring back to the board for evaluation. I'm not saying 30 by any means. So is the board comfortable with that? We'll have staff bring us back what they think would be a reasonable time frame. And the other one is, do we want to continue the advertising in the manner in which we are between the 2 papers, or do we want to look at shifting, or what position? Greg, and then Steve.
I just have the question, if one paper is charging us half as much as the other one, why aren't we advertising with them? Is it based on, do we get the same amount of inches and the same amount of service for half the price? Is that what I can infer, or is there some reason the Aspen Times is charging twice as much as the Daily News?
I don't have the answer to that, but I think some of the feedback I received from departments is, you know, the more places you can place an ad, the better in terms of reaching, you know, a broader audience. Which is why, you know, they may place an ad in the Aspen Daily News and in the Aspen Times. But regarding rates, I don't know the answer as to why one is more expensive than the other, but I could find out.
I think that would be a good question, because just purely from an economic standpoint, if we decide to choose to make the Daily News a paper of record for the county, it may be an economic decision as well as a fairness situation if we're trying to spread the joy out amongst the media companies in the valley.
Steve?
Yeah,
Greg, are you
in
done?
terms of the purpose of the advertising is to get the message out to as many people as possible, and if it means advertising in both newspapers, I would say continue doing that. Maybe it would be worth negotiating with the Aspen Times to see if we could get a lower rate. Just to point out the fact that we can get a much better rate at the Daily News, and why are they charging what they are charging. In terms of the public notices, I think we should research that a little bit and find out what it costs to do that in the Daily News before we just rush into making a decision based on an emotional event that's happened recently. Let's try to look at this logically, and it's no secret that our board wasn't happy with what happened at the Aspen Times recently, and I don't know. I don't think the community has received necessarily a satisfactory answer from the new owners of the newspaper at this point in time. But the Aspen Times is, 140 years old or something, Greg? Goes back a long time. And I think we should try to base our decision as much on fact as on emotion of what's happened recently.
Good. Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, it's useful that some of these operational concerns have come to light, but the genesis of this conversation was a political motivation. And I was, I think our board had a good conversation related to that about, the real dissatisfaction with the Aspen Times decisions and, a lack of commitment to free and fair press in this community, which has been a value that we have all treasured and supported and which is fundamental to holding us accountable. So I kind of want to bring it back to that conversation because I think that's why we're here today, is to have figured out what steps do we need to take formally to support, that political perspective. And, I believe withdrawing our advertising funding for some period of time from the Times would be meaningful. I think we can revisit it in a duration after a duration that passes, but is frankly a powerful tool that we possess and a powerful statement I think we express to the community about the continuing need for resolution of the problems that have come to light there. And I don't want to spend our county taxpayer dollars to continue to support that until those resolutions have been, I think, adequately addressed to the community's satisfaction. So that's what I hope we achieve today. Again, this doesn't have to be a permanent boycott, but I do think that right now it is a meaningful thing, and we have a very professional, very excellent alternative to accomplish our county requirements and goals, and that we're not sacrificing in order to achieve both.
Okay. I wasn't going to say anything, but I think I need to. I in no way am negating what Kelly says. I am also concerned about the manner in which the Aspen Times handled things. I'm also concerned about some of the reactions from the local community that we were using our positions of political power to, stifle freedom of speech or whatever. For me, I think it brought to light some good things about the fact that we support people's right to freedom of speech. We support that, and we don't support manipulation by local media to try and persuade us or sway us in one direction or another. I would like to approach this on the fact we learned that we hadn't reviewed this in many years. I think what is important to me is we get our advertising and our message out, be it in one paper, the other, or both, which we've been doing for years with our advertising. I myself would like to look at the cost of switching our publication of our public notices to the daily news, and leaving some of our advertising so we get that message out. We're looking at advertising now down Valley in the Down Valley newspapers because we want people to know that we have these positions and things open, and we need to, use all the avenues and all the tools we have at hand to try and get the word out there when we want people to be part of Pickens County, working on committees or attending our events or knowing what we're doing. So I'd like to kind of see a blend, making a statement that we are not supporting, but I think the word boycott is a strong word. I'm just saying that I think it's time that we look at alternative, and that the fact that what happened at the Times brought this to our attention, and that it's not a wrongdoing on our part to decide we want to do things differently.
So just so that everybody's clear, we're kind of talking about two different things here. We're talking about advertisements,
right,
which are discretionary and don't need anything more than direction of the board. And then we're talking about designation of a legal publication, right, for legal notices. Only one of those counts.
And the second one we'd have to bring back to the board for formal action.
And the second one, I would anticipate bringing back for you a resolution rescinding the prior action and establishing Aspen Daily News as the official publication of record.
And I think in all fairness to both local newspapers, I don't have a problem in switching it up. And in that the fact that the Aspen Times recent actions brought this to our attention, is why we're actually choosing to revisit this and still be supportive of trying to get the word out, you know, still on a basis with both papers. Some people choose to read one or both or none. And we're going to be sending money down Valley to the other newspapers to get the word out a Valley-wide for a certain issue. So I don't have a problem keeping some level of advertising with both papers, but I don't have a problem with bringing it back for a formal resolution to change our legal noticing to the Aspen Daily News. Yes, sir.
Just one more thing in that regard. There'll need to be somewhat of a lag, simply because there has been publication that has occurred already for actions that are pending. So to integrate a change, we'd probably pick a point in time, you know, as soon as we can.
Well, we expect you to bring that back to us, John.
Okay.
Well, if the board chooses to go that direction, but to be clear.
In terms of advertising down Valley and then the Crystal Valley especially, I would not forget the Sopris Sun and the Crystal Valley Echo as two papers down there that people read down Valley that, you know, if we want.
Right, I'm not talking on a regular basis, it's just what
This
Francie
for
brought
some of the
up.
advertising, I think,
Yeah.
and I don't know, maybe we do some in there, but
I
think
believe we do when it's issue specific.
appropriate
And
for
that's
the
why I
Crystal
think Francie
Valley.
bringing up the Snowmass
Yeah.
Sun is a great place to put an ad in for the Airport Advisory Committee. It's
Sopris.
perfect. Sopris, what did I say that?
You said Snowmass.
No, I meant, that one too, no, it's still percent. So, yeah. But it's really up to the board. If the board wants to take a stronger hand, you know, I'm not saying that I would not support the board in doing so. I just, yeah, I think it's time for a change, and that change has been pushed by actions of the Aspen Times. So,
Is this just a thumbs up?
yes.
Doesn't require
So
a-
the advertising, I would read as administrative direction to staff and how we execute the budget that you approved. That's the discretionary part that John was talking about. But the legal notice would have to be a formal action in a regular meeting.
If the board gives direction to staff to bring that back, and then we can take a formal vote at a appropriate time.
And so you all have been switching between the two, and so, you know, we'll want to break those questions up into the legal notice so that we have direction on that, and then on the advertising, because I think I'm not quite clear on that direction just yet.
I would suggest to the board that we ask the staff to come back with the legal notice resolution. And you just need a thumbs up on that, is that
Yeah,
right?
we can't take a formal vote here, but,
But
and
just to bring it
and
back.
also, on what Kelly's looking, I'm thinking about the difference in cost for the advertising. I'd like to see if we can vet more information on that. If we're advertising the same amount and the costs are so different, or if we're advertising more with the place that's charging us more, we might want to shift more to the daily. So that's information I don't think we have at hand today, but part of a future discussion.
Can I understand why there's not support to pull advertisement for a limited period of time from the Times based on the conflict that we all know and have discussed?
Are you
I've heard from you, Patty. I'd
Okay.
like to understand
Okay.
the rest of my colleagues.
I would consider that. I mean, today is the first time I've contemplated that, so, you know, to me, I'd have to sleep on it
I guess my
before
question.
totally
yeah.
deciding.
My question would be, who are we punishing? It's
Ogden
punitive.
News, and
Right.
and I have spoken with staff reporters, and I understand people are concerned about staff there, and that, you know, they recognize this as a powerful move and a powerful statement to be made that could push change. It may not.
Right. I also think, I just want to keep in mind that part of the entire purpose is to make sure that the public is as best informed as it can be. And I want to understand that a little bit better. I'm as angry as you are. I'm just not certain yet. But I'll probably vote with you.
Well, and I think when it comes back to us and we have more information about the advertising costs, how much we advertise, in, you know, with the Times and the Daily, and why the cost is so different, that doesn't mean that, and we'll have future discussion. And again, if the board presents and I see some, you know, different perspectives, You know, we're all open to
I know,
change.
the time is of the essence on these things, so.
I'm not necessarily one who pushes for punitive action.
You know, I don't necessarily think getting more information about differential rates is going to, make any difference as far as the kind of philosophical question at hand.
And I totally understand that. I understand Greg's point is, the key here for me is making sure that our public is gets the opportunity, whether they see one paper or they have access to one or to both. But, and I am a little more moderate, and I'll be honest, in taking punitive actions against somebody. I think we've let them know our position, and I think there are some things we can do, and I think it's really worthy of a discussion. So we're making a decision that still protects people's freedom of speech and access to information. Francie?
Well, if I were to go the route that Shelley wants to go, which is a statement of political commitment to encouraging free speech and the other issues that are involved in this, I think it would be a mistake to couch it in financial terms, that would be disguising what the political statement actually is. It would be like sort of backpedaling, saying, we really want to do this, but actually it's just because of finances. And so I think it would weaken the statement that Kelly wants to make. So I think that the two are separate issues, and I don't want to conflate them. If we're going to make the statement that Kelly wants to make, we should make it and not pretend that it's, I mean, you wouldn't be pretending, I understand, but I mean, for some of us, it would look like we're trying to make it look less powerful by saying, well, it's really because the advertising is cheaper.
Yeah, and in no way am I saying that. I'm just saying, what is the best way for us to get our advertising out to our community? So we make a statement in one paper, and are we then not providing the information to our public and our constituents? And I do think what happened, and I take it seriously what happened with the Times, and in no way am I saying, oh, because they charge us so much money, I'm going to switch. No, it's a matter of I think we really need to switch our advertising for our public notices to some place where that political business, which is public notices, can take place in a more open manner. Steve?
Also, to get our message out, I think perhaps we should consider doing an op-ed kind of a piece in probably both of the newspapers. And it would maybe just, I don't know, I think it needs to be sort of the letter that Kelly drafted, but also our response to some of the community reaction to feeling like we're abusing our power to be punishing a private enterprise for doing something that by law they're allowed to do. But we need to speak out strongly in favor of free and open speech and not having this specter of censorship hanging over us, which is hanging over us right now.
Or termination.
Yeah.
And that's why withdrawing our support as a, community institution is a powerful message, I think, to send in a timely manner, and that we can revisit. I'm curious where Francie's at.
Are we deciding today, or is it coming back to us?
Would like
I'm urging us to decide today. We can give administrative direction about advertising pretty quickly. The notice requirement will have to come back formally.
This is a hard one for me to do because although I abhor what the Aspen Times did and how they did it, it's kind of like I've really enjoyed the Aspen Times for the last 30 years. And I have warm feelings about the Aspen Times, I have to confess. Not saying I don't about the Daily News, but I guess I am wondering, is it... I'm not quite ready to speak about it yet, Kelly. Can you just give me a few more minutes to think about it?
Of course, then.
Okay. Well, would you like to take a break to think about it? I mean,
Actually, I wouldn't mind taking a break.
So let's, because I know I'm trying to get Kelly on the highway, so.
Right.
So I don't want to rush this, so, but, yeah,
Could we have a proposal to suspend advertising at the Aspen Times until we've had a chance to take a longer look at this? We could make a statement that would support what Kelly's suggesting we do. We could say, well, we're not going to advertise now. We may revisit this in another month or two when we understand more about this. You know, we can always say that for the time being, we're going to switch our advertising. It's not going to put them out of business. We know that. We're not that big a deal, you know, but it is significant, and I would love to hear more from the public about it. I've heard from some people who congratulated us and others who condemned us for it, and so maybe there's more public input to be heard on this.
Without an op-ed.
I'm not sure.
I think an op-ed would be great, but which paper would we put it in?
Well, so anyway, the proposal was, we could just say, direct staff to suspend advertisement in the Aspen Times for the current, foreseeable future, and then we can revisit that. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm just trying to figure out how to get us there. Because I agree with what I'm hearing today, is that we're pretty disappointed, and honestly, for me, it's a trust issue. I'm not sure I trust the Aspen Times, and it's painful, Francie, to say that, because I grew up selling it.
I was going to say, did you sell it at the Red Onion?
I was a paper boy. I sold it at the pub. Oh. They'd give me $1 and wouldn't ask for change.
It was a quarter. It was a quarter paper then.
And I grew up with this, so I feel the same way. I've taken photographs for them, and my mom worked for them, and all that. And so it's an emotional, nostalgic thing, but it isn't the same thing anymore. These aren't the same publishers or the same people. Right. And one thing, as Kelly points out, we can do is decide where we want to direct funds. I'd like to hear more from people, but in the meantime, I wouldn't mind saying, we're going to suspend our advertising through the fall, and then we'll revisit this when we understand more about what's actual, if there's something else to understand.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I would support that too. And I go back 61 years with the Aspen Times when it was the weekly, sold for $1, as I remember.
No, it sold for a quarter.
15 cents.
Or a quarter, whatever it was.
I think it was a quarter when Tommy.
I think we
got it.
got
When
it.
Tommy was selling it, but that's who knows what.
I think we got it in the mail out there.
Well, it was a quarter if you didn't give them their
Because we weren't in
change.
town to have the
Remember,
paper
they'd be lined up,
boys.
the kids would be lined up in the back alley of the Times waiting for their papers on Wednesday, I think it
I
was.
think
We all
you're
had our
right,
roots.
that it's not that anymore.
Yeah,
And the
so
publisher isn't even
I'm
there.
hearing from the
And we
board.
know who owns them.
Okay, I'm hearing from the board direction till the fall. Are we going till, John, help me with this?
Well, I think I
a
think I'm hearing
contract?
two different things. I think the real issue at the table is reestablishing trust in the paper and the institution, where the board feels like the use of public funds is again appropriate. And so I don't know that I would put a definite timeline on it, rather than a communication that right now, given these circumstances, the board has decided to pull that funding, and you look forward to additional information or changes that may restore that trust. And don't box yourself in to a specific date. Box yourself into what you're trying to accomplish.
And so if the board chooses to go in this direction, which I see the board choosing to go in this direction, I want to make sure that we still have communication with our constituency as to advertising. So if we need to do more advertising in the Daily News in the interim, then I would suggest that we look at that. My concern is I don't want to neglect getting the information out to our constituency of events that the county wants their constituency to know about. And if that takes upping it in the ante in one sector rather than dividing it between two, then as long as we accomplish getting the word out there, that's important to me. So I think, yes, Francie.
Yeah, I have a question about online. when you advertised in the Times, isn't it automatically in the Post Independent as well? No? Okay.
I think they're the same owners.
And there are some differences in how the papers operate with online advertising. I know we had some concerns around our particularly employment advertising that we do, where that is a functionality that's on the Aspen Times website, I understand is not available on the Aspen Daily website. So we'll have some disadvantages through this, and we'll have to look at how we up our game in other channels until such time as that trust is restored or the board changes their mind.
Can I ask Dave a question?
Well, we have to open a public hearing and bring him up to the table, and is the board comfortable with that? Okay. Dave, would you like to come up, and we'll give you a couple minutes here. You need to come up to a mic.
Equal time.
Well, there's nobody here from the other.
Do you want to do it with the times in the room?
Yeah, yeah.
Should we wait for the times to be present? I don't want to.
No, I mean, our hearing was supposed to have started, so.
I just have really one question for
Sure.
you. Do you consider yourself to be in competition with the Aspen Times?
In general, you guys have already acknowledged that having two new daily newspapers in a town this size is so extraordinary that we have a luxury that so few communities have. I've dedicated my life to the free press and to the Fourth Estate, and so I would never speak ill or like of a fellow truth seeker, right? So competition is a funny word. I mean, we compete for ad dollars. So in the free market capitalistic sense, I suppose we're competitors. I think we really support one another to hold power to account within the boundaries of the communities that we serve. But certainly, it kind of depends on how you define that. But certainly for ad dollars, yes, we compete for ad dollars.
Okay.
That was a great answer. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. I'm bringing it back to the board. I think that see direction. John, and Marcy?
I do have a question about, from one of the departments, I think often uses the free community calendar on the Aspen Times, within the Aspen Times.
The green, did you say green?
Free.
Oh, I thought you said green.
So
I'm like-
yeah, this has nothing to do with, ad dollars.
I'm hearing that from the rest of the board, I'm hearing nothing that goes to the Aspen Times for a period of time until we decide to bring it back.
A press release or a news release would probably go to them.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what goes into the calendar. I don't know how that's.
No.
I would encourage us to maintain our level of transparency with both publications in terms of what is happening in the county. I think that's the right thing to do. What the paper chooses to do with that is their decision.
John, would you explain that? You're saying press release like fire ban notices? I mean, that's public safety. Do you want to continue to allow public safety to be brought to both in papers? I mean, that's critical for me.
And those are
ads.
And so that right now, I think the direction that staff would hear is we would do our public service announcements or press releases around those items, just like we always do to both papers, or any media outlet, quite frankly. But that the advertising portion of that right now, as I understand the direction from the board, we would not be.
Well, that makes me uncomfortable that we would not be able to do public safety ads, such as fire bans and, those kind of things, because that's critical that we get that word out there. When people, we put banners and posters and flyers and everything, and I would hate to,
Those would be PSAs, though, not ads, right?
No, we do
So
ads.
We do ads, yeah.
I think the distinction here is anything you spend money on to, to get the word out. Whereas a press release is, the basis of an article that a reporter writes. And we would continue to send those to all the journalistic outlets that we continue to send those through. And, pursue other ways of advertising and spending our advertising money to get the word out for county items and matters. That's
Right,
what I
and I understand that, but advertising is done for fire bans. It's not, it is also a press release, but we also do fire ban,
It's
ads.
also on Pick and Alert, it's also on the highway.
Okay, but I'm just saying that's a hard one for me, because I believe we need to get the word out on those public safety issues. But if the board is saying no advertising dollars will be spent at the Aspen Times, then that is the direction the board, I'm seeing the
Well,
board going in.
Let's ask what percentage are our public, what do you call them? Like if it's a
Public service announcements?
Well, not public
Public
service,
safety.
but public safety, emergency related. Is that the bulk of them? I don't expect you to have that at your fingertips, but if you do, I'd love to see it.
I don't have that at my fingertips, Greg. I mean, I jotted down some examples of ads that we have placed recently or are currently placing in the Aspen Times. And they do include like wildfire mitigation. And I know that when fire restrictions go into effect, we place ads in both papers. But, there's just a variety. There's a weekly recruitment ad to fill county jobs that's placed in the Aspen Times, a weekly ad for the Solid Waste Center, and recently ads about the Motherlode Mercantile and the landfill's landscape products, an ad from Open Space and Trails in the Times Summer Biking Guide, bus vaccine clinic ads for COVID-19, a weekly ad that lists library programs and events. Human Services does a lot of outreach and post job openings, elections and motor vehicle. And I think we do place probably a lot of those similar ads in the Aspen Daily News. There are other alternative advertising methods as well, and we'd be happy, if you do go this direction, we'd be happy to come back with
We already do a
more of
lot of those
strategy.
other alternatives.
We do
Right.
a lot of alternatives
Yeah.
too.
So Dave, you had one more thing, and then I'm gonna bring it back. You're good? Okay. So I think I see direction from the board, staff, that we're just gonna do the ads that we would do for, like, press releases, et cetera, not ads, but press releases, those kind of things. And no advertising will take place for an undetermined amount of time. That's what I'm hearing the board say. I'm still concerned about getting public safety announcements out to the public through advertising, especially for wildfire-related issues. But I see the board going in a different direction, so.
I agree with you on that, Patty. I think there'll be times when we want to push a public safety message out. If there's a fire ban, I would make an exception for that. I don't want to make it too complicated. I'd expect both papers to have ads from us, in boldface, big, if it's important, we have to get the word out. But I think we can make a distinction between public safety and then all the other things you mentioned, and probably be in a fairly good position there. I don't think we're keeping people from hearing, what's important.
So John, how do we deal with that?
Is that too complicated for?
Well,
Will you
I
think
want to know
about-
if that's board direction first.
That's
or
a
if
suggestion to the
yeah,
board, yeah.
And if so, we'll have to probably put some bumpers around that so we know what staff discretion is or what we need to bring back.
Perhaps if the fire chief demands it, or the sheriff demands it, or somebody says, hey, this isn't a public safety issue, well, public health director.
Yeah, I also think that, I'd like to understand how there's more methods that we can leverage. I mean, I feel like those cell phone blasts, which cost money, could be a better and actually a more productive way to spend
Get an
money for
emergency
things
out.
like that.
If used with discretion and not, doesn't,
Right.
really needs to be an emergency if you get one of those. Yeah.
But I'm seeing the board generally is saying, we're cutting advertising to the Times. And we're gonna change, John will bring back a formal resolution for us to change our posting for legal notices. And I think it's time that we spread that legal notice wealth around. And I think that the actions of the Times have brought that to our attention. And that was not our fault, that was their fault to bring it to our attention, and that's where we are. But as far as advertising, I still have concerns about making sure that our constituents know what's going on in all manners, and Marcy will be looking into other options, and hopefully you'll give us an update on that. So does that kind of resolve it for the board?
Yeah, and at a future meeting, Patty, I think bringing back a conversation about what does rebuilding trust look like, I think that's probably too much for
Yeah,
today.
it's too much for now because
Great
we
idea.
are already like onto opioids. Not on opioids,
Not already?
onto opioids. All right, thank you, gentlemen, for coming, we
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. How's that baby Ruby doing?
She's doing great.
In Cairo?
Also great. She turned 4 last week.
Oh, my God. He lives around the corner from me. See you.
Thank you.
All right, we are gonna move to opioids.
Yeah, and I will try and make this quick. I think all of you received a notice about the opioid settlement dollars. Right now, we are in Region 5 with 26 other public entities. I know Summit, Eagle, Picken. I need to get my list out to see if I'm missing any, plus municipalities in there.
Garfield, Eagle, Pitkin, Summit, and Lake.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Yes, you've been our representative. We have to opt in to be part of receiving the settlement funds by the end of July. And so right now, they have year one distributions for Region 5 set at $661,156.43 approximately.
Approximately.
And those will be divided amongst all of those 26 public entities, of those that opt in for those dollars. That is a larger distribution. The year two distribution drops to $280,280.33. And then over the next 18 years, there's just over $4.7 million that will be distributed. And we don't have exact numbers right now within the region, I think, until after the opt-in period. And
What
we-
was the Region 5 number again? 61?
The Region 5 number for year one is $661,156.
600, and but there's other years that are millions?
Over the next
Oh.
18 years, after
They're
the first
stretching
2
it out.
years, sorry. So
Okay.
that 4.7 will be spread over the
Okay.
18 years.
So,
Yeah.
John, you're not entirely correct.
Oh.
The region gets a certain percentage of the money coming from the state. Then each of the entities within the region, each county and each municipality gets, I think it's 20% if I recall, and maybe Lindsay has the figures right in front of her, but
Oh, I didn't see
that 20% is less, and I believe the figure they calculated for Picken County was 9,000 and something that would come directly to us if we opt in. If we opt out, that $9,000 goes to the region and would be in the bigger pool of money that the region has to spend on.
Right, but our
effort.
9,000 is part of the 600,000 percentage that we get.
Correct.
Right,
Correct.
so I don't see any reason for us to opt out. I think we need to take the money and then look at how we can use the money with other entities, because we don't know where the city of Aspen's going, and we need to make this decision by the end of the month. So I think the sooner we stay, that we are gonna opt in and we're gonna bring the money home, and we would like to work with other jurisdictions to pool that money so we get a bigger bang for the buck.
And I believe that is staff's recommendation, is to go ahead and.
Perfect, and I didn't even talk to you about it beforehand.
And Lindsay, I apologize, I didn't see you pop up on the screen there, so she'll let you take
Kelly
that.
has a
That's
question
okay.
here, so.
I don't, well, I just wondered if staff could give a little bit of the landscape of opioid use in Picken County and what trends are being observed.
Lindsay, I think that means you.
Or Jenny.
And I was actually looking to Jenny because I see
Or
Jenny.
Jenny, that might mean you.
I would say, sorry, there's an echo. there's two of us in one office, sorry, that we don't have a lot of data really specific to Pickens County on what opioid use is here. And if we do want a presentation on that, I'm happy to work with some other partners to prepare that. The PACT program is seeing a little bit of opioid use among our clients, and that is self-identified. So usually in our quarterly reporting, we look at how many folks have identified, and there's usually one or two folks who identify as using opioids. We are seeing statewide, though, significant increases in opioid deaths, and that is certainly a concern. We don't have really specific data to Pickens County as to whether fentanyl is here, but it is certainly other places in the valley. And so we would encourage anyone using illicit drugs to treat it as if it has fentanyl in it. Do you have any other specific questions about that?
I do have a question about the use of the money. Could the monies we get go to PAC to help further that program, which has been so successful? Or are there limitations on to where are this whopping $9,000 we're going to get? Because we need to pool the funds into some, I think, regional effort.
And it's actually, Pickens County is going to get $6,411.69 in the first year. The city of Aspen would get $5,700. So looking at all the local governments in Pickens County, if all of us pooled our funds together, it would be $13,600 for the year. And if we do accept that money, there is at least some reporting requirement for that. So that's something that we would want to understand a little bit more thoroughly, possibly before accepting that. Because we might find that the kind of cost benefit is impacted by that reporting. I think it is possible it could go to PACT. It is possible it could go to other harm reduction activities. One of my first thoughts was that our harm reduction agency locally, High Rockies Harm Reduction, has not been able to have a space to work out of in Aspen. So it's possible we could do something like that. Sorry, I would just say they're an agency, they're a nonprofit, but they work in the valley.
I'm not familiar with them.
So those are just initial ideas.
Yeah,
So
well,
can we process that much money for less than that much money?
I think that's the question. I think the problem is if we don't we have a time frame. So not knowing that what the administrative cost would be to us is a very good point. And I'm not familiar with the harm reduction group, but so those are choices I think we can make after we opt in and get our whopping $6,000 and try and pool it locally. But yeah, I would like to look at the options of how we can use the money and whether we want to, further a program that we have a good history with that needs funding. I'm not quite sure. Kelly?
Is it easier just to opt in based on the timeline now and then deal with all these questions?
That's what I'm thinking.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's better that it goes to Garfield or Lake if they're seeing a higher need or something that we can decide to divest in the future.
I think we can always pool it in the future. So, Steve?
Well, part of the discussion was that we would do an IGA or an MOU with Garfield County and perhaps with Eagle County and do a Roaring Fork specific kind of effort. Now, Summit County has decided they are going to opt in and keep their funds over on their side of Vale Pass because they're, kind of a separate area there, and we will all be benefiting from the 600,000 figure from the region also. We're going to be getting a lot of money through that for harm reduction and data, collecting data. There are three different areas that will be specifically have that money directed to for at least the first 2 years.
So the 600,000 isn't just simply being divvied up between the counties and the municipalities in the region. That's already allocated to other entities. So yeah, that's more information. I think for now we need to just opt in, get the money, and then figure out how we're gonna, get bigger bang for the buck by mutual agreements and with cities and counties within our region.
Yeah, and also in all of our discussions, everybody is thinking that there will be other grant opportunities for us to apply for other grants that we can get more money for specific things if need be. Or we could put in general fund money if we decided to, that, you know, into the whole effort, depending on what efforts are decided to do here in Pickens County or in the greater Roaring Fork Valley. So there's probably going to be other money available that we just don't know at this point how much, or, you know, the necessary sources of it.
Okay. So is the board going towards, we're going to opt in. And then we're going to gather more information, hopefully sooner the better.
So another question would be
Lindsay, you got
about
your
the city of Aspen and the town of Snowmass Village and Basalt all are also receiving a municipal
Right.
amount of money, which is, well, Aspen's is actually 5,000 something, so they're getting a.
No, that would be part of the conversation when we do
Yeah, but
something. It wouldn't
we-
just be with counties, it'd be with the municipalities.
We really need to communicate with them and tell them what we are doing, that we would like them to also opt in, and we could pool our local money for some local efforts. And I think, I mean, that's my thought. I'd like to hear from the staff members if that's what you are foreseeing also.
Yeah, but see, that would be something we'd probably direct John
Lindsay
to.
has her hand up. Patty.
I know, I saw that. It
Yeah.
would be, John, for you to reach out to the county city
Can do it
managers.
right now.
Okay, so Lindsay, please, did you have something more to add to?
Yeah, so I just wanted to let you all know that at this point, what they've communicated to us through the governance structure is that everyone has opted in. There's no one that has opted out yet. So that's what we know at this time. The larger sum is to go to 3 main focus areas, which is the anti-stigma or an education campaign, harm reduction, and then gathering data through a regional data dashboard, which might also help influence, where the next year's money may go. So I think to your point, Patty and everyone's, this is just the beginning of the conversations. It's a pretty small amount of money. So we could see that supporting some of these areas of interest as well.
Okay, thank you. So John's already reaching out to the others, but it sounds like everybody's opting in, so I think we're either leading the way or following suit. I'm not sure, but I think we know which way. Steve, thanks for all your time and effort you've put into this and for
Well,
bringing it back so we had a
also,
time frame.
I mean, I'd like to call out specifically Jenny Lyons was really active, and our group actually picked her to be our voting representative on the committee, because she was the most knowledgeable and really knew, was on top of everything and really good at organizing our group. So thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Jenny, and I think we'll be seeing more of you as we try and determine how best to pool these monies and really make a difference if we can. Greg?
Thank you all.
If I could just add, Jenny, thank you, and Lindsay, and it's nice to see Jordana there as well. Really, they need to add a couple zeros to this to really make any sort of significant difference. So to try to talk about using this money and making an impact in the same sentence is almost
I know.
laughable. But I appreciate, and I think opting in makes the most sense, but also keeping the focus on, we do have substance abuse issues with our community, in our jail and in the community, and we have a population that's vulnerable to addictions of various types here, and I don't want the small amount of money that's being thrown our way to have any to be any indication that we don't have a problem. And I know you're all intensely focused on that and intently aware of it. And I just want to make sure the public understands that as well, because to say we're getting a $6,000 grant is like, I'm sorry, that's chump change, folks. Come back to us. The state should come back with something more. And until then, we're going to be taking it very seriously. And so I hope the messaging, maybe we spend the money on that amount of money on the messaging that, hey,
As in which paper?
In the Daily News, of course.
online. Thank you, though.
All right, thanks, Greg. All right, anything else, guys? Thank you, ladies. We appreciate it. Jenny, I know, we might want to talk about bringing back some more information, some kind of little presentation so the board has a grip on what you and Steve and Jordan and Lindsay already know. So thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Okay, we are now at open discussion for the board. Francie's been flipping through the paper. I have a feeling she's got something pressing.
I do. It's the Maroon Bells virtual meeting tomorrow night, which is a virtual Zoom meeting concerning the Maroon Bells Comprehensive Recreation Management Plan. Pitkin County, the city of Aspen, White River, blah, 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 are in the initial stages of developing a comprehensive plan to sustainably provide for, but this meeting is, I haven't heard anything about it, so I'm just curious about what it is.
Brian just came on the screen. I think maybe he
There he
knows
is.
something about it.
Oh, good.
Brian, you want to fill us in on this? Because I think we knew it was coming.
That's right. And so this is a follow-up. So we had this meeting for the locals in actually the board meeting room a couple weeks ago. And we had attendance. People came and learned about the Maroon Bells recreational planning effort. However, we wanted to reach out to people that visited the Bells that didn't live locally. And so this is an opportunity for those folks to join and give us input on what they would like to see happen at the Bells. An email has gone out to everyone that visited the Maroon Bells last year.
Oh, cool.
Through our consultants. So anybody that didn't get to the prior meeting that was locally held in person, they can join virtually this meeting. And so that's what this is, Francie. It's a follow-up to make sure that we're fully inclusive of people that enjoy the Bells.
Great, thank you. So you are Pitkin County at this meeting?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
great, that's wonderful. Thanks a lot, Brian, I appreciate that.
Thanks, Brian.
Can I ask a question,
I have
Brian, since you're still
couple
there?
more things,
Off the top of your head, what do you think, what are the numbers looking like for attendance or people, visitors to the Maroon Bells? How has that changed in the last 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, and the best effort we have today, it's still continuing to go up. So if you're asking for real numbers in 2022, I can get those for you, Greg, but the visitation is still big.
It's
So
gone
I
up
don't
pretty
have exact
dramatically in the last few years. So I know a lot of people are nostalgic about their visitation of the Bells and how much they love it and they want unfettered access, but there are an awful lot more people going there now. And that's what we're trying to work with, trying to understand.
Absolutely.
And that's a national trend.
It's a national trend in all the national parks and all the state parks, and everything is getting hammered, and we have to somebody's got to look after these places, right?
John?
Patty, I was going to go to a couple other
Well, I don't
open
think
discussion
Francie's
items,
done.
so.
I have some more issues, but I can
Oh.
wait till after you.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you so much, Brian, I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
One is
See you
the,
tomorrow.
Don't go yet.
Go Friday. See you Friday.
I have a question for
Roundabout
Brian.
ribbon cutting.
Oh, do you want to go now while you have Brian?
If I could, Brian is actually here, I think, Brian, to talk about pre-purchasing vehicles. You may remember that during the budget process, we had budgeted with the intent of pre-purchasing. We had to do that the year before because of the lead time, and so we have the appropriation. Brian is looking to put that order in to pre-purchase for 2018. We just wanted to notify the board and see if there are any questions. And Brian, if I missed anything there.
Did you say pre-purchase for 2018?
Yes, I don't understand this.
2023, I'm sorry.
Yes, I was like,
I have no idea where 2018 came from. 2023, right, Brian?
That's right.
I'm like, did I?
Good
Is it
Lord.
just me having?
Yeah, you should check the numbers in the budget, too.
So-
I'd be interested in knowing if has our mix changed at all? Are we looking at electrics?
Always. We're always looking to change into the electric realm. With these two trucks that I'm bringing to the board today, these are heavy tandem axle plow trucks. And Kenworth, who was supplying that through our procurement process, has said they're going to open up our ordering next week, and then they will close it very quickly. So the ordering vehicles has changed over the last couple of years. I think in the future, we will likely bring if this were a perfect world, I would have brought this back in this last supplemental round, and I think we'll do that next year. So 2024 vehicles will come to the board in 2023 in that second quarter supplemental request, so that we can order them and get them rolling. Otherwise, we're not going to get vehicles in a timely manner. So this request is really, and will come to you to solidify in the third quarter supplemental, is really just to authorize the expenditure of $600,000 for 2 tandem axle plow trucks through Kenworth, and we'll order them next week if the board just gives me a head nod that they'll approve the supplemental when it comes in the third quarter.
And
It's
great,
just a
they will
different
get
day.
red electric snowplows. Okay, yeah, I don't think there's, I know we did that with the sheriff's vehicles in the past, so, yeah, I mean, it's not a matter of when we will get them, it's if we will get them if we don't jump on the bandwagon early. So, yeah, I think the board would appreciate seeing this come back on the third round of supplementals. Yeah, so,
We actually don't need a supplemental. We have the appropriations. We
so-
just wanted to let you know we're doing it since
Okay.
it's a
You're just telling us.
rollout order. Yeah.
Awesome.
and we're telling you that we like what you're telling us.
Great. As long as we can order them, that's all I care about. So thank you very
So,
much.
no, so wait a minute, before then, are you gonna be at the ribbon cutting on Friday?
I will not, Patty.
Oh, that's
I
right,
will
I'm the
be
only one that's gonna be there, speaking for the city, for EOTC, for the county, and for the deer on the highway. And the
We're gonna
elk.
have so much fun, Patty.
I can't wait.
Don't forget to mention the Shale Bluffs cleanup for me.
There'll be a reporter there. It'll be you
Wait,
and the
wait,
reporter.
and Brian, was it 7 million we got for the roundabout? Remember the check we got from CDOT?
Previously? Or
Yeah, in
for this one?
2000.
I will have to look and verify that number.
I
but
think
can
it's
get it.
7. Dave said, just say multiple million. So if you don't get back
That
to
would
me,
be accurate.
I've got words I can fill in the blank I have in my presentation. But I'm also presenting on every aspect of the construction that goes on until October. Why they picked me, you know how I feel about that roundabout, Ryan. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think Francie has more.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So Polis is coming to town to announce about the bear conflict resolution.
Tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow. And somebody, I can't remember who it was, wants to know who's going to be there.
Matt
When is it, where
Yamashita.
is it?
Oh, yeah, it's Matt Yamashita. Wants to know if any of us are going to be there.
I don't know, did we get an email?
Yes, we did.
I have
I
it.
haven't looked in my email today because I've been here.
It's from June 27th. I'm just looking at it right now. It doesn't say what time. Francie, did you
It's,
figure out what?
it doesn't say what time. Please let me know if you plan to attend, and I will send out more information. Thank you for your support.
I would like to know when and where it is, but I don't.
It's, it doesn't say where either. I'm just going to write to Matt and say where and when.
Okay,
Well,
okay.
Yeah, I think to say, I mean, Kelly and I are at CCAT all day tomorrow. I doubt if either one of us will be at all available. But we need to know when and where. and
Yeah.
It would be good if one of us could be there.
Well, I'm gonna be in Basalt in the morning mediating
Um,
the Ray Road.
Oh.
I'm open. I
So
like
did you
Matt.
write to
Matt's
Matt?
great.
just then?
Love being around Poles, but that's okay.
Would
Okay.
you could find out what time and let us know, because if I'm
Love
already
it.
down there, yeah. If I'm already down there, I will go.
All right, as soon as I hear back from Matt, I'll let you
Thank you.
guys know. I'll text you
Okay,
guys.
other things, Francie?
Yes, the Snowmass Rodeo safety thing that we got. Do we have to do anything about that?
No.
No? Okay. And then the other one is the BLM, the Big Game Corridor, and it wants to know if we want to be a participating agency in the BLM effort to create a big game corridor and other important habitat. It's all 64 counties are affected by it, and they need a whole study and everything, but if we want to be involved, then they need a representative. It's about 24 months of commitment.
And the meetings are Wednesdays.
Exactly.
I'll do it.
We sometimes with cooperating agency, so Francie, what that is a request if we want to submit as a cooperating agency. I think Greg, you had forwarded this on also.
Yeah.
We could designate staff for that or a board member. We've done both in the past. This is a large study. I don't know that I've ever seen one that covers all 64 counties and
Is there a way we
I don't see how one corridor could affect all 64 counties.
I-70 and 225. Is there any way we could be involved at a different level so we were still in the loop? Can we find out?
It says that if you choose not to participate, you still will be asked for input and stuff.
That is correct. As a cooperating agency, you tend to get that input more frequently and upfront. And so we would still be able to participate in whatever regular public process the BLM follows, but generally, if it's an area of concern for us, coming in as a cooperating agency is better.
I think that's what we should do.
It's, we have very little BLM land in the county, but it could still be a really important thing to have input on if it's really going to be a big game corridor.
Well, you never know. It's better to be involved than not to be involved.
Probably.
If you're not at the table, you're on the menu, Francie.
And in this case, you may well be.
It says.
Okay, so John, we'll be a cooperating agency. We'll figure it out as we go along. Steve?
I would agree to be a cooperating agency.
So who's going to contact?
It could potentially lead to a wildlife overpass.
Yeah, there you go.
Over Highway 82 somewhere, perhaps.
I wanted to ask, does it either has to be an elected or a staffer of the county, or is it somebody we could
just says representative.
elect an ambassador from Pitkin County from the public at large?
You could typically, though, it's a staff member or board member because this body maintains kind of more control over policy questions.
But
we couldn't create a special ambassador for the wildlife.
You could, but then they're not necessarily representing us.
But a cooperating agency means that we don't have to have somebody attending every meeting. It means we're kept in the loop, right, John?
Yes.
And John, you will let them know that we're going to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so it's
John's handling
okay, and then the last one is the U.S. News and World Report badge for a healthy community. Did you see that? So you'll be saying yes. Send us the badge.
Yeah, so that's something
And
that
who's gonna wear it?
We've gotten. I usually wear that one, but no, it's a badge that we're able to put on our websites and that sort of thing. That we're one of the healthiest counties in the nation. That's been something that I think we've been in the top 25, actually top 10.
10%, top 10%.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at Francie because every time she tells us where we are in the New York Times when it comes to COVID, we are definitely at the top.
I don't feel reflected at the top healthiest in the county, so I won't be wearing it.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important to note that with those high incidence rates, among the 25 healthiest counties in the nation, we have the lowest death rate. So I think those
it's
are.
kind of so I think we should look into it and put it on our website.
Well,
and we have we've been doing that the past couple of years, so this will be a continuation.
And
I
we've
wanted to
actually. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Greg.
I was just going to say, I wanted to ask, do we have people who really know what this thing represents, looking at it, so it's not just like some sort of
Well,
shameless.
it's U.S. News and World Report. So
right, but you know,
not like.
Do you want us to put an ad in the paper?
if it was people, no, I don't actually. I'm just want to make sure that this is something worth paying any attention to.
I think it explains it on the website.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember. They partner with a university. I want to say it's Johns Hopkins, but I may be wrong on that. And they look at specific metrics around different social determinants of health. And so we tend to score high on individual health. We tend to score low on some other social determinants like cost of housing and those sorts of things. And that's where
it's a legitimate, recognized survey and distinction rather than something supported as an advertising.
Yeah.
we did not pay for any of it.
We didn't pay for it, and it's not sponsored by, you know, the evil empire of some sort. I just want to make sure.
Kleenex or
Yeah,
something.
opioid companies.
Not that I'm
right.
aware of. It's a partnership, and I'm sorry, I just can't remember the university, but.
It's funny, when I saw that, I just kind of thought, okay, fine, that's very nice. It's like when you get those things about you should, you know, advertise with us and be on the list of best dressed people. If it's in that category, we can just forget about it. But
Well, I don't think any of us would qualify for that, so.
I wouldn't
I don't know,
qualify.
Kelly would today.
Kelly might.
Oh, I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right,
Sure.
so
Speak for
moving on,
yourself.
because Kelly needs to get out of here, so.
Do I need to
Greg?
bring up the wilderness workshop, Julie Slivka's request? I've forwarded it all to you regarding the Gunnison Public Lands Initiative. If you could take a look at the email.
Greg wants us to see if we're gonna support a letter
I did.
supporting
I
them,
looked at
so.
it. Yeah. I thought maybe we could trade for wild and scenic designation support.
Oh,
Not
well,
kidding.
that's
So
an
would the
interesting
board-
little horse trading here.
Would the board please look at it, and then on Tuesday,
We
Greg,
can
bring it back? No, yeah, Tuesday, bring it back, and we can decide if we're gonna sign it, and we'll move it along. Whether you want one signature, all board signatures, so we'll bring it back to discuss it. Greg's not done.
No, that's.
Oh, Greg's
other than-
done.
I was just gonna ask.
John, are you done?
I did want to ask us if we would ask Brian, I'd love to just know what it would cost to clean up 82 along Shale Bluffs, where it's a critical area.
Picken County does not have a
Wanting
street
to know
sweeper.
that. We could
Well,
just
then
buy
he-
out the advertising and pay for it ourselves.
We don't
right?
have a street sweeper.
And the last time I looked at it for the 82 corridor, and I do not know if this is true, is around $90,000 to buy out the Dalwhinnie stuff.
No, I thought we were talking about street sweeping the corridor.
Well, it'd be interesting to know about that, whether
I'm
we
sorry.
bought that out or just sent them away, because I wasn't under the impression that maybe they haven't even followed up on their promise. But then, what it would cost just to keep the highway shoulder clean, just for the 1 mile stretch between the end of Shale Bluffs east or north and south ends.
We want to keep Greg safe on his new electric bike.
What's the 90,000?
There are people riding bikes through there now, and
And that
it would
was
be a lot safer if they had.
That was to clean the highway and buy out the
You
cleaner.
look at it, there's a lot of, well, you could call it gravel. I guess it's
debris.
cinders from
So John,
winter.
could you ask Brian how much, because we don't have a street sweeper in Pickett County?
Oh, well, tell him to put it on his shopping list.
Thank God we don't.
it's going to be more expensive than you think.
What is the carbon footprint of a street sweeper?
If it's electric.
Not to mention the.
They don't have electric street
Pedal
sweepers.
powered?
They're awful. Carbondale has them, they're awful.
Yeah, well, City of Aspen has one, but if we could find out, I thought we were gonna talk to CDOT about that in our joint
I
meeting.
know, but then they'll push it off on Brian, who they'll often.
So you wanna have the answer
often
before you
Pitkin
ask the
County-
question.
Often Pitkin County actually does the work for fixing the holes in the road because the CDOT is too busy elsewhere, so Brian has a deal with them where we
Or
do
the
it.
alternative is we pay for the contract that, the sign people
Yeah.
are buying.
And we're
you know,
talking two
so-
different things. I'm
Yeah, that's
still
two different
talking
things.
about Greg's bike on the highway.
Well, but
Just
that covers
keeping the
that
shoulders
stretch,
clean.
so.
Well, that's trash. I don't know about gravel.
We put up a sign that
There's a lot of
says this
trash
part
in
of the highway is
Okay, guys, could we kind
Cleaned
of
by
try to
Pickett
stay
County.
focused here, because Steve has,
Two things. One is the
you can sneak in.
Firefly Walk on July 12th that Gary Tannenbaum sent out.
Yeah, we've already noticed
We were talking
it.
about noticing it, so.
It's already
then
been
we-
noticed.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that, because I would like to go, and I hope, I mean, I've never been on the Firefly Walk, but I think it's an opportunity to see
We
the
need,
ingress and egress to there, and different things that are been on our plate lately, so.
I'm
would be
going
fun.
with Cynthia and Teddy.
it's been noticed, we just need to let Gary know if
Who's
we're
going?
going and how many people we're thinking about bringing, so that we know there's capacity, and it's pretty much if we exceed capacity, then we're gonna have to not take everybody.
Are we walking down from Redstone?
We don't know the logistics yet, Gary will let us know.
So
I've
the,
already noticed Gary.
the other thing is our CCI priority issues that's due Friday, July 8th, and if we want to do the RET thing again,
I have a PowerPoint all ready to go.
I
I would
think.
love to put the red thing on again. I have a list of contacts in Denver. I've been working with John Ely. I've copied out the state constitution. I've pulled up previous RET information. And, yeah, I'm looking at some people in Denver who might be great advisors for us on this, so.
So, we need we have somebody at the staff who can put together the CCI form that we have to submit to them?
could do it if I
Or
just.
do you want to do it,
I may need a
Kelly, and get
reminder.
it to, I don't know.
Send Kelly a reminder.
Yeah.
Because we still,
Shall I send it right now, Kelly?
John-
Yes, can you
John-
do like a calendar invite for July 6th?
John, we still have time on the 5th at open discussion if anybody else has issues they'd like to bring forward. Okay? It's not just exclusive to one issue, so if there's anybody who has anything, we have the 5th because we don't have till the 8th and we can submit it the morning of the 8th. Okay? Right? So Kelly, your alarm's gonna go off and you're gonna go, what the heck is this all about? All right, Greg, Steve, Greg,
The
Francie?
Firefly Walk does include families, just so,
You
Does
can,
include.
but it's also limited in space, so we
Right.
can't bring anybody and everybody we would like to bring, so we need to keep that in mind.
Gary will tell us.
Plan to bring my
Gary will
kids
let
and
us
my
know.
husband.
It's at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday, and we have a work session here that day. And we have a regular meeting the next day, and we have interviews of Airport Advisory Committee that Tuesday.
I'm gonna.
All right? Kelly, drive safely.
Steve, I'll see you on Zoom tomorrow.
Okay, anything else the board would like to bring up at this point? I do again want to thank the elections office, for staff, and for everybody who was hanging in there with us last night till the wee hours, and for the cleanup that
you.
was done
Bye,
today.
Kelly.
And I'd also like to thank the voters for taking the time to vote. So I'm going to close the work session for today, if it's okay with the rest of the board.
it's okay.
No, I want to keep meeting.
Okay, Steve, I'm out of here, you can run it. Thank you, guys, and thank you all for being here in person today, and thank you, staff. We love it. Hope we were entertaining enough. All right,